Chapter 786. Princess Jin Ning stared at noble consort Lu, who was lying on the ground, her face full of cold resentment and disgust. Xin Yang's words completely shattered the last trace of hope Princess Jin Ning had for her mother. Back when Princess Jin Ning was drugged and knocked unconscious in the cold palace, her face was disfigured. For the past 2 years she had never stopped hating noble consort Lu. However, this hatred was also mixed with a trace of hope for her mother and an unbreakable admiration. If noble consort Lu sincerely apologized to her tonight, even if there was a trace of guilt and remorse, Princess Jin Ning's golden hairpin wouldn't have pierced her body. However, at this moment, there was only pure disgust and hatred in Princess Jin Ning's eyes. The relationship between mother and daughter was truly severed from now on. Hearing Xin Yang's words, Mo Wuyo didn't hesitate anymore. She raised her hand and quickly pulled out the golden hairpin. For a moment blood gushed out. Mo Wuyo ferociously took out the holy healing medicine Xin Yang refined and poured it on the wound. Then she tore a piece of white gauze from noble consort Lu's clothes and began to bandage the wound. Princess Jin Ning didn't hurt noble consort Lu's fatal spot. If the fact that she couldn't have children in the future was excluded, even if noble consort Lu died in the end, it would only be due to excessive bleeding. Now that she had Xin Yang's holy bleeding medicine, her life naturally wouldn't be in danger. After bandaging the wound, Mo Wuyo took out a small porcelain bottle and poured it down noble consort Lu's throat. After a moment, noble consort Lu's originally pale face began to recover its color at a speed visible to the naked eye. Isn't it a waste to let her use such a good thing? Did I give you such a thing for you to abuse? Xin Yang stared at Mo Wuyo and said unhappily. Mo Wuyo raised his head and smiled sweetly at Xin Yang. Master, Uncle Prince Ding and the princess consort must have something to ask. How could they get anything out of her when she was in such a state just now? Xin Yang snorted. You're smart. Mo Shuyao narrowed his eyes and saw that noble consort Lu's complexion had improved. He nodded indifferently. Since it's fine. Xiaoyan, what do you think? Mo Xiaoyan lowered his hands and said indifferently. Everything will be handled by Uncle Prince Ding. This person has nothing to do with me and my royal sister anymore. Even though we are no longer related. She turned her head and glared at noble consort Lu's beautiful face. Gritting her teeth she said, she still owes me a face. Hearing this, noble consort Lu's expression changed. She glared at Princess Jin Ning and said angrily, what do you want? Princess Jin Ning looked at her, gritted her teeth and said word by word, you ruined my face, shouldn't you compensate me? Noble consort Lu sneered and said, I gave birth to you. Even if I took your life you should accept it, let alone disfiguring your face. Mo Xiaoyan walked to Princess Jin Ning's side and took her hand. He looked at noble consort Lu and said, I just said that we have nothing to do with you anymore. Noble consort Lu snorted disdainfully. The relationship between mother and son couldn't be broken so easily. In noble consort Lu's opinion, Mo Xiaoyun and Jin Ning would always be her children. She could disdain them, but they absolutely couldn't be disrespectful to her. She forced herself to stand up and sit in a chair on the side. Although she had applied medicine and bandaged her wound, it wasn't something that could be healed in a short period of time, no matter how miraculous the medicine was. The intense pain made her expression become a bit twisted. She looked at Princess Jin Ning with a gaze that seemed to be dipped in poison. Princess Jin Ning didn't care about her gaze. When a person was in complete despair for another person, they would become extraordinarily cold. Noble consort Lu didn't care about Princess Jin Ning and Mo Xiaoyun's reactions. If it was said that she still cared about these two children in the past, then the 2 years of painful struggle had completely wiped out that little bit of insignificant feeling. Since Mo Xiaoyao and Yi Li appeared here, most of noble consort Lu's attention had been focused on them. However, she no longer had the infatuation with Mo Xiaoyao like before. Instead she was filled with bone-deep resentment. Noble consort Lu even hated Mo Xiaoyao more than Yi Li. However, she knew that she couldn't be impulsive anymore. She had always deeply experienced Mo Xiaoyao's heartlessness towards her. Prince Ding, why did you order these two to assassinate me? Could it be that you want to become enemies with the northern tribes? Noble consort Lu raised her chin and stared arrogantly at Mo Xiaoyao. She was now the future princess of the northern tribes. Her status wasn't lower than Mo Xiaoyao and Yi Li's at all. She didn't need to be polite with them. Yi Li was speechless. She silently glanced at Mo Xiaoyao sitting next to her. Was this the legendary hatred born from love? What do you mean? Princess Xin Ning stepped forward and said, what does this have to do with the Prince Ding mansion? So what if this princess wants to kill you? At worst, this princess will pay with her life. Royal sister. Mo Xiaoyan looked deeply at noble consort Lu, then said to Princess Xin Ning, let's see what Uncle Prince Ding has to say. Mo Xiaoyao tilted his head to look at Princess Xin Ning and Mo Xiaoyan, then said with a faint smile, Xin Ning, although your royal father is already dead, the Dechu state probably doesn't have anything to do with you now. However, as long as I acknowledge you as a princess, you are still a princess. Using your life to exchange for her life? I had people raise you for so long just for this? Who will compensate I for the losses? Princess Xin Ning was stunned. She wasn't good at scheming. However, she also knew that being impulsive wouldn't solve the problem. She lowered her head and said, Uncle Prince Ding, it's Xin Ning's fault. Only then did Mo Xiaoyao nod in satisfaction. He didn't raise this princess and this prince for fun. If they lost their lives for noble consort Lu, wouldn't he have wasted a lot of effort? Therefore, not only could Princess Xin Ning and Mo Xiaoyan not die, they had to live well. Tilting his head to look at noble consort Lu, Mo Xiaoyao asked gently, I just want to become enemies with the northern tribes? What are you going to do? Do you want to go back and ask Yelu Yi if he's willing to go to war with I for you? Noble consort Lu was furious. Mo Xiaoyao's casual question was clearly mocking her. What about me? Mo Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows and smiled. Prince, the northern tribe's crown prince and the seventh prince are here. Outside the door, Zhuojing came in to report. Tonight, this small Prince Chongqing's mansion is quite lively. Let them in. After a while, Zhuojing came in with Yelu Hong, Princess Ronghua and Yelu Yi. Seeing the blood on the ground and the battered noble consort Lu, everyone was stunned. Princess Ronghua smiled and said, Princess, what happened? Yi Li said indifferently, nothing. Miss Qin Yaina suddenly broke into the Prince Chongqing's mansion with the intention of harming Prince Chongqing and the princess. The princess panicked and hurt Miss Qin Yaina. Yi Li, you're talking nonsense. Noble consort Lu roared, but the pain from her wound caused her to grit her teeth and break out in cold sweat. Yelu Yi walked over to support noble consort Lu, who was sitting unsteadily in her chair, and asked, what happened? Noble consort Lu bit her lip and said with grievance, Prince, it was Prince Ding and Princess Ding who ordered that girl to hurt me. Other than Princess Xin Ning, the other three girls rolled their eyes and looked up at the sky. This noble consort Lu was at least 34 or 35 years old. Was it really okay to act like a spoiled child? Chapter 787. Yelu Yi obviously didn't approve of noble consort Lu's delicate appearance, so he asked in a low voice, why are you here? Yi Li smiled faintly. Miss Qin Yaina isn't going to say that I sent people to kidnap you, right? Noble consort Lu misspoke. She did come to Prince Chongqing's mansion by herself, but she couldn't say the reason in front of so many people. Yi Li looked at Yelu Yi indifferently. Prince Yelu, Miss Qin Yaina just accused me and Prince of instigating Princess Xin Ning to assassinate her for no reason. Now I want to say that she broke into Prince Chongqing's mansion with the intention of harming the princess and Prince Chongqing, framing consort I. Yelu Yi frowned, although he believed noble consort Lu's words more in the current situation. However, Yi Li's words made him speechless. At the same time, Yelu Yi was also unhappy that noble consort Lu had come to Prince Chongqing's mansion without permission. Yelu Hong, who was sitting on the side, looked at Yi Li making trouble for Yelu Yi, but his expression was very calm. He just frowned slightly. Prince Ding and Princess Ding are the hosts, so they definitely wouldn't be so rude to guests. Moreover, it's unreasonable for them to instigate Princess Xin Ning to assassinate Qin Yaina. But seventh brother, isn't Qin Yaina always with you? Why did she come to Prince Chongqing's mansion? Yi Li and Mo Xiaoyao instigated Princess Xin Ning to assassinate Princess Xin Ning was indeed unreasonable. However, Yelu Hong directly ignored the fact that Princess Xin Ning had tried to assassinate noble consort Lu herself, obviously pushing the blame to noble consort Lu. Yelu Yi frowned. Royal brother is right. I'm afraid today's matter is a misunderstanding. Princess Ronghua covered her mouth and smiled. Seventh brother is right. Qin Yaina and the late noble consort Lu are so similar, so some misunderstandings are inevitable. 2 days ago, Prince Chongqing and Princess Xin Ning came to visit. Could it be that Prince Chongqing and the princess are still? Emo Xiaoyun cupped his hands to Princess Ronghua and said respectfully, Aunt Ronghua, you are right. I and my royal sister were reckless before. The matter is already clear. Us siblings have nothing to do with Miss Qin Yaina. We mistook her for someone else. After saying that, Emo Xiaoyun took a step back and secretly grabbed Princess Jinning's hand tightly. Princess Jinning lowered her eyes to hide the hatred in her eyes. In the end, she didn't say anything and silently agreed with Emo Xiaoyun's words. Yelu Hong smiled. It's fine as long as it's a misunderstanding. Then tonight's matter, Emo Xiaoyun said. Tonight was also a misunderstanding. Miss Qin Yina's sudden arrival caused us to have some verbal conflicts. Royal sister thought that Miss Qin Yina wanted to harm us, so she stabbed her. Please forgive me, Prince Yelu. If there is any punishment, Xiao Yun is willing to bear it. Since the other party had already said so, Yelu Yi naturally couldn't bully a 13 or 14-year-old child. She had no choice but to let it go. Noble consort Lu had suffered the hairpin in vain. With a sullen face, Yelu Yi bid farewell to Emo Xiuyao and Yi Li. He supported noble consort Lu and was about to walk out. Wait a moment. Xin Yang, who had been watching from the side, suddenly spoke. Although Yelu Yi wasn't familiar with Xin Yang, he knew that his position in the Prince Ding mansion was very special. He turned around and patiently waited for him to speak. Xin Yang took a prescription written by Mo Wuyo and handed it over. As the saying goes, a doctor has the heart of a parent. Since she's a patient, this old man can't ignore her. This girl has had too many miscarriages and the injury just now was not in the right place. Take this prescription back and let her use it. Although it can't guarantee that she will be pregnant in the future, it's still good for her body. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the people in the hall became strange. In fact, Yi Li and the others already knew, but seeing Xin Yang say this to Yelu Yi in such a serious manner, Yi Li's smile couldn't help but stiffen. Yelu Yi's face was so gloomy that it was frightening. Even if the people of the northern tribes didn't particularly care about women, that was only referring to the common people of the northern tribes. The imperial family's degree of fussiness about these matters was no less than that of the people of the Central Plains. Even if Yelu Yi and noble consort Lu didn't have such a thing, it was still very embarrassing for someone to say it in front of so many people. Noble consort Lu's face was pale because of Xin Yang's words. She glared at Xin Yang and Mo Wuyo with resentment, then left with Yelu Yi in a daze. After Yelu Yi left, Yelu Hong and Princess Ronghua naturally couldn't stay any longer. They also got up and left. Seeing that there was nothing for him to do, Xin Yang stood up and left with Mo Wuyo. When he passed by Princess Jinning, he stopped to look at her and said, "You're quite an interesting girl. Come find me at the Prince Ding mansion later." After saying that, he left without looking back. Princess Jinning and Mo Xiaoyun didn't understand what Xin Yang meant, but Mo Wuyo did. However, Princess Jinning's injury was really too serious. Even Mo Wuyo, who was very confident in his master's medical skills, couldn't guarantee that she would be able to recover completely. He could only say, "Jinning, remember master's words. When you have time, you must come to the Prince Ding mansion." Seeing Princess Jinning nod, he then bowed to Yi Li and Mo Xiuyao and chased after her. For a moment, only Mo Xiuyao and the other three were left in the hall. The originally tense atmosphere in the hall suddenly quieted down. Mo Xiuyao frowned as he looked at the young man and woman in front of him. Although there weren't many things happening tonight, two things happening in a row made Mo Xiuyao very unhappy. His gaze towards Mo Xiaoyun and Princess Jinning also became somewhat unfriendly. Even if he didn't deliberately release it, this kind of expert's pressure still made Princess Jinning and Mo Xiaoyun sweat profusely. Yi Li sighed softly as she looked at the siblings' stubborn appearance. She raised her hand to hold Mo Xiuyao's hand and said softly to Mo Xiaoyun and Mo Xiuyao, "You're tired too, have a good rest. Don't act rashly in the future." Mo Xiaoyun nodded in agreement. Mo Xiuyao stared at Princess Jinning and asked, "Do you still hate her in your heart?" Princess Jinning clenched her teeth and said, "I hate that I can't tear her to pieces." Mo Xiuyao sneered and asked, "What right do you have?" Princess Jinning was stunned and looked at Mo Xiuyao with some confusion. Mo Xiuyao said indifferently, "Do you have the ability to tear her to pieces? I'm afraid that the next person to fall into her hands will be you." Princess Jinning clenched her teeth. In terms of ability and means, she was indeed inferior to noble consort Lu. Emo Xiuyao pulled Yi Li to stand up and looked at the two indifferently, saying, "The two of you are not allowed to interfere in noble consort Lu's matters anymore. Similarly, you're not allowed to help her. If I find out that the two of you have secretly done something you shouldn't do, don't blame I for being ruthless." Emo Xiaoyun's heart skipped a beat. Prince Ding's words meant that he planned to deal with noble consort Lu. Supporting Princess Jin Ning, Emo Xiaoyun said respectfully, "We will follow Uncle Prince Ding's instructions. Xiaoyun and royal sister will not act rashly. She has nothing to do with us anymore." "Very good." Emo Xiuyao nodded with satisfaction and walked out holding Yi Li's hand. Back at the mansion, Yi Li and Emo Xiuyao both gave strict orders not to tell Master Qingyun about what happened last night. Actually, at Master Qingyun's advanced age, he had already let go of many mundane matters and was very open-minded. However, as a younger generation he still didn't want the old man to worry about this matter that they could solve themselves. Early the next morning, Yi Li and Emo Xiuyao had just gotten up when the guard outside came to report, "Miss Dongfang requests an audience." Yi Li was stunned for a moment. She couldn't figure out who this Miss Dongfang was. Emo Xiuyao disdainfully curled his lips and said, "That one from Infinite Boundless Mountain. Go ask young Master Qingchen to deal with it. I and the princess consort still have matters to attend to." The guard accepted the order and left. Yi Li asked in confusion, "What matters do we have?" Emo Xiuyao said with a smile, "We're going to see my little princess and cultivate our relationship." In the main hall of the Prince Ding mansion, a woman dressed in white sat quietly drinking tea. She didn't seem to be angry at the master's neglect at all. She just waited calmly. After an hour there were footsteps outside the door. The white-clothed woman's lips curled into a perfect smile. When she raised her head she didn't see the white-clothed, white-haired, handsome man. Instead she saw another white-clothed, black-haired man with a snow-white robe. Although young Master Qingchen attracted attention, she put all her attention on Emo Xiuyao last night. She actually didn't see Su Qingchen sitting in the middle of the Su family. However, she could guess his identity just by looking at the elegance of the white clothes. She stood up and smiled faintly. "Dongfang Yu greets young Master Qingchen." Su Qingchen smiled faintly and nodded. "Miss Dongfang, you don't have to be so polite. Please sit down." Dongfang Yu nodded and sat down. She looked at Su Qingchen and said, "Is Prince Ding here?" Su Qingchen smiled. "Prince Ding has some matters to attend to. He has no time to receive you. Please forgive him." Dongfang Yu looked at Su Qingchen and raised her eyebrows. "Young Master Qingchen is hostile to me? I don't know how I made young Master Qingchen unhappy." Su Qingchen smiled but didn't say anything. Dongfang Yu sighed helplessly and said, "I understand. Young Master Qingchen is Princess Ding's cousin. No wonder young Master Qingchen is dissatisfied with my daughter." Su Qingchen shook his head faintly and said, "I'm afraid Miss Dongfang thinks that I am hostile to you. Miss Dongfang thinks too much. The relationship between Li and Prince Ding is their business. Whether it is good or bad, it is their business. The Su family will not interfere." Dongfang Yu said, "My daughter has no intention of interfering in the relationship between Prince Ding and Princess Ding." Su Qingchen said, "This is Miss Dongfang's business." Chapter 788. Compared to Emo Xiuyao's merciless mocking and scolding, Su Qingchen's casual politeness and distance made Dongfang Yu feel more at a loss. Dongfang Yu looked at Su Qingchen for a long time, then sighed and asked, "You don't believe me, young Master Qingchen?" Su Qingchen smiled and didn't say anything, neither yes nor no. Dongfang Yu clearly took Su Qingchen's silence as a tacit agreement. She said mildly, "Young Master Qingchen, rest assured. The reason why I chose to marry Prince Ding as a concubine is not because I want Prince Ding's love or anything else. It is only to assist Prince Ding. Once Prince Ding reigns supreme, Dongfang Yu will naturally leave to pursue my own happiness. I will not miss Prince Ding, nor will I bring any trouble to Princess Ding." Su Qingchen said with a smile, "Miss Dongfang, you can go and pursue your own happiness now. Forgive me for being blunt, but Prince Ding does not seem to need your help. Also, it must be because Miss Dongfang has not left the mountain for too long, so you do not know some of the established rules of this world. For example, a concubine cannot be said to marry but to accept. How could a woman who could say so openly that she wanted to marry Prince Ding be as uncompetitive as she said? Perhaps she really did not need Prince Ding's love, because what she wanted was something more important than Prince Ding's love. Su Qingchen had never had a good impression of these so-called legendary reclusive families. As for the so-called choosing a master on behalf of the heavens, it was even more nonsense. If they really had such foresight, they should have come out 10 years ago. Although the world's situation was not clear now, Mo Shuyao obviously had the greatest chance. Adding on the power of infinite boundless mountain, it was indeed not difficult to create a hegemon that could unify the world. However, even without the people of infinite boundless mountain, the Prince Ding mansion could still do this. Why did they have to take on such a reputation? A trace of anger flashed in Dongfang Yu's eyes. She found it hard to remain calm at Su Qingchen's lack of respect for her. However, Su Qingchen's attitude made it impossible for her to vent her anger. For a moment, her expression became a little complicated. Dongfang Yu had always been aware of her own strengths and abilities, but she also knew that her innate talent was useless in front of determined people like Mo Xiaoyao and Su Qingchen, so she did not want to embarrass herself. He looked at Su Qingchen calmly and said, "I think there are some things that I need to discuss with Prince Ding personally. Perhaps Prince Ding will give a different answer." Young Master Qingchen doesn't have full authority to represent the Prince Ding mansion, right? Su Qingchen raised his handsome eyebrows slightly and didn't comment. He simply said, "Prince Ding is not free right now. Dongfang Yu was not in a hurry. I can wait." Su Qingchen frowned as he looked at the woman in front of him. He suddenly felt that this woman was trouble. What he didn't know was that this woman was indeed troublesome, but she wasn't Mo Xiuyao's problem. Dongfang Yu was indeed very patient. Su Qingchen sat in the hall and accompanied her to drink 6 or 7 cups of tea. Even young Master Qingchen, who was always calm and composed, felt that he couldn't bear to sit in silence with such a woman. However, Dongfang Yu didn't seem to be impatient at all. She sat in the hall with a dignified expression and occasionally took a few sips of tea. It wasn't until close to noon that Mo Xiaoyao and Yi Li finally arrived. Seeing the stiffness and helplessness hidden under Su Qingchen's gentle and elegant face, Mo Xiaoyao's mood was obviously much better. As the host and guest sat down, Mo Xiaoyao leisurely leaned back in his chair and let Yi Li take the lead. Yi Li smiled at Dongfang Yu and said, "I haven't asked for your name." Dongfang Yu stood up and bowed, saying, "My name is Dongfang Yu. Greetings to Princess." Yi Li nodded and said with a smile, "Miss Dongfang, you don't have to be so courteous. The prince and I have some small matters. Sorry to have kept you waiting." Dongfang Yu smiled and said, "How could it be? With young Master Qingchen receiving us, my daughter and young Master Qingchen had a great time." Mo Xiuyao smiled at Su Qingchen and said, "In that case, why don't Miss Dongfang tell young Master Qingchen directly? Now most of the affairs in the Prince Ding mansion are handled by young Master Qingchen." Hearing this, Dongfang Yu frowned slightly and said, "Prince, forgive my daughter for speaking bluntly. Although the prince and princess are deeply in love, and the prince also trusts the Su family. Since ancient times, the monopolization of power by relatives has been the source of chaos. Moreover, the prince hasn't really achieved anything yet. If in the future..." The 3 people in the hall silently looked at Dongfang Yu's words of advice. They were speechless. It was not that there was anything wrong with these words. At a certain time, these words could even be said to be priceless advice. But the problem was that Miss Dongfang was now neither a relative of the Prince Ding mansion nor a confidant of the Prince Ding mansion. Was it really good to speak so bluntly and speak ill of others in front of the Su family and Princess Ding? Did this girl actually memorize these words from a book? After Dongfang Yu finished speaking, Yi Li smiled and said, "Thank you for your advice, Miss Dongfang. I think the prince knows these things in his heart." Dongfang Yu frowned slightly and looked at Yi Li with some dissatisfaction. She said, "Princess Ding, although the Su family is your maternal family as the saying goes, a married daughter is like spilled water. Moreover, you are not the daughter of the Su family. Shouldn't you be thinking of the Prince Ding mansion wholeheartedly? How can such a thing for the family be the way of a wife and concubine?" Yi Li was silent. This girl not only wanted to be a loyal minister and a martyr, but also wanted to be Empress Zhongsun. If the successors of the Boundless Mountain were all like this, Yi Li really doubted how they climbed to the position of empress. She should have been killed by the emperor because of her advice. "Miss Dongfang, you don't need to think about these things for the time being. Why don't you tell me what you came to the Prince Ding mansion for?" Yi Li finally couldn't help but interrupt her and ask. Dongfang Yu's beautiful face showed a trace of disbelief. She stared at Yi Li and said, Princess Ding, don't you understand? Finding that her intelligence was doubted, Yi Li felt very innocent. What should I understand? Dongfang Yu said, I went down the mountain to assist the new emperor. Then go and find your new emperor. Yi Li's mood was also rather gloomy as she replied mildly. Dongfang Yu choked on her words, forgetting about Yi Li for a while before she smiled mildly. The new emperor chosen by this generation of Infinite Boundless Mountain is Prince Ding. I am this generation's successor of Infinite Boundless Mountain, and have come to assist Prince Ding by the mandate of heaven. Yi Li looked at her, asking, Miss Dongfang's so-called assistance is to enter the Prince Ding mansion and become the prince's concubine? Dongfang Yu said unconcernedly, this is only a temporary measure. Since Prince Ding has already taken a wife, I will naturally not interfere. When Prince Ding unifies the world, I will naturally retreat with success. Yi Li tilted her head and passed the problem to Emo Shuyao. Prince, do as you see fit. Do you want to take in a female strategist? Emo Shuyao's reply was merciless. Throw her out for wasting eyes time. Prince Ding. Dongfang Yu opened her eyes wide in shock, glaring at Emo Shuyao as she said, Prince Ding, do you really not want to know what benefits I can bring to you? Infinite Boundless Mountain's power is much greater than you can imagine. Emo Shuyao didn't even lift his eyes as he said indifferently, I have no interest in that Infinite Boundless Mountain of yours. Moreover, with a successor like you, even if Infinite Boundless Mountain could withstand 1,000,000 mighty soldiers, it would still be useless. Chapter 789. Such words were even harder for Dongfang Yu to accept than directly looking down on Infinite Boundless Mountain. She truly wanted to assist Emo Shuyao. She also believed that with her and Infinite Boundless Mountain's help, Prince Ding would definitely be able to unify the world in the shortest time possible, becoming a mighty ruler of his generation. And Infinite Boundless Mountain's reputation and position would also become even more resounding and consolidated. But she had never thought that Emo Shuyao would actually look down on her and the power behind her so much. Looking at Emo Shuyao, then looking at Yi Li, Dongfang Yu had a flash of understanding in her heart. Turning her head towards Su Qingchen, she frowned, saying, Since Prince Ding is unable to accept this method of mine, then we can also change it. Emo Shuyao's expression was indifferent and unmoved, only to hear Dongfang Yu say in a clear voice, Since Prince Ding is unwilling for me to marry into the Prince Ding mansion and ruin the relationship between Prince Ding and Princess, then I can also join the Su family. The three present were all stunned. Emo Shuyao and Yi Li's gazes all turned towards Su Qingchen. Currently, only Su Qingchen and Su Qingyan were not engaged in the Su family. This Dongfang Yu would not want to marry Su Qingyan, whom she had barely met before. Therefore there was only young Master Qingchen. Emo Shuyao's gaze instantly became playful, looking at young Master Qingchen as if he were looking at a piece of good fat meat. If young Master Qingchen could obtain Infinite Boundless Mountain's help, then it would obviously be very worthwhile. Of course, this girl called Dongfang Yu could only obediently stay at home to take care of her husband and children and serve her in-laws. Don't even think about it. Su Qingchen unceremoniously rejected Emo Shuyao's plan. Emo Shuyao did not care. He did not see Infinite Boundless Mountain's power as important. It would be good if they had it, but it did not matter if they did not. Moreover, if he really obtained Infinite Boundless Mountain's assistance, he would still have to think of a way to claim it as his own, lest another bored woman appear 100 years later to choose him on behalf of the heavens. Emo Shuyao shrugged and said, All right, this matter. I'll leave it to young Master Qingchen to handle. I will not ask any more questions. Lily, let's go first. There are still things to deal with in the study. Yi Li looked at Su Qingchen hesitantly. Emo Shuyao pulled her out and comforted her. Don't worry, if young Master Qingchen can't even handle such a small matter, then he wouldn't deserve to be called the #1 young master in the world. Thank you, Brother Qingchen. Seeing Emo Shuyao pull Yi Li away without hesitation, Su Qingchen wanted to throw all the booklets in the study at his face. He had worked so hard for the Prince Ding mansion. Not only did Emo Shuyao not feel the slightest bit of gratitude, but he was also constantly trying to make things difficult for him. Master Qingchen, Dongfang Yu said softly. Miss Dongfang. Su Qingchen stopped Dongfang Yu and said indifferently, Say no more, the Prince Ding mansion does not need Miss Dongfang's help. Most importantly, the Su family did not need a daughter-in-law like Dongfang Yu. Dongfang Yu said unhappily, Prince Ding did not say that. Isn't young Master Qingchen's decision too selfish? Su Qingchen waved his sleeve and called for the guards outside. Send Miss Dongfang out. No one is allowed to let her in. I won't give up. Dongfang Yu said firmly. Su Qingchen's expression did not change. Take her away. After sending Dongfang Yu away, Su Qingchen walked to the study with a gloomy face. In the study, Mo Xiuyao and Yi Li sat together. The warm and intimate atmosphere made one feel unnecessary. Seeing Su Qingchen enter, Yi Li stood up and said with a slight smile, Big brother, Dongfang Yu has been sent away? Su Qingchen nodded and his sharp gaze swept towards Mo Xiuyao. Mo Xiuyao was not the least bit ashamed. He said with a smile, What is young Master Qingchen doing? I did not say that. Isn't it that Miss Dongfang has taken a fancy to you? Su Qingchen said with a slight smile, That kind of girl, even Prince Ding does not like her. Who can she like? Although it was only a short conversation, Su Qingchen had already seen it clearly. He did not know how the people of the infinite boundless mountain raised Dongfang Yu. There was no such thing as love in her heart. Therefore she really did not interfere in the relationship between Mo Xiuyao and Yi Li. Of course she did not propose to marry Su Qingchen because she liked him. Instead she felt that it was convenient. Marrying into the Prince Ding mansion as a concubine, or marrying Su Qingchen as his wife, she could use her own methods to help the Prince Ding mansion dominate the world. At the end of the day she only had her so-called ambition and achievements in her heart. But her ambition in the eyes of people like Mo Xiuyao and Su Qingchen was simply illusory. Other than the power of the infinite boundless mountain behind her, she had nothing. Not to mention assisting the emperor of a generation. A talented general, the head of the harem, the woman behind the emperor did not just need to be smart. Smart women could be found everywhere in the world. Similarly, there were also many who were proficient in the four arts. But women who could stand side by side with men like Yi Li were one of a kind. But in terms of the four arts, poetry and even astrology, Yi Li might not be as good as Dongfang Yu. But if Dongfang Yu could do it, there were naturally other women in the world who could do it. And what Yi Li could do, there were very few women in the world who could do it. Therefore she was one of a kind. Moreover, even the previous queens of the infinite boundless mountain had never placed themselves in the position of the emperor's assistant. In short, Dongfang Yu thought too highly of herself. Mo Xiuyao smiled. Maybe that Miss Dongfang likes immortal young masters like young Master Qingchen? Prince, I suddenly remembered that I want to travel for a few days. I'll have to trouble Prince to settle the matters of the Prince Ding mansion by yourself. Su Qingchen's expression was unfriendly as he said mildly. At the mention of this issue, Mo Xiuyao could only admit defeat. After all, if he really forced young Master Qingchen to leave, it would be a huge loss. Coughing twice, Mo Xiuyao said righteously, In any case I'll leave Dongfang Yu to deal with. Whether you want to kill her or take her home I don't need to ask. Brother Qingchen, don't worry. No matter what you do, I and Li will definitely support you. Saying that, he did not forget to pat Su Qingchen's shoulder to show his support. Su Qingchen raised his hand in disdain and pushed Mo Xiuyao's hand away. Had he ever seen such a shameless person? Young Master Qingchen deeply felt that having such a cousin-in-law was definitely the greatest disbelief in his life. If he had known that there would be such a day, he would never have married Li to such a shameless person. Yi Li helplessly put her hand to her forehead and said, Big brother Xiuyao, what exactly is this infinite boundless mountain? Yi Li was not completely a person of this world after all. There were many things that were not especially important that she would not go out of her way to understand. For example, this infinite boundless mountain. Yi Li really did not have much of an impression of it. Su Qingchen sat down and said with furrowed brows, The reason why infinite boundless mountain is so mysterious is greatly related to the fact that it has produced 3 empresses. Also, the people who have left the mountain for training in the past are indeed all elites amongst people. But if they are really so powerful that they can rule over the world. Young Master Qingchen's lips curled up slightly. Mo Xiuyao and Yi Li were both people who understood him very well. They naturally understood the mockery in his words. Chapter 790. Young Master Qingchen continued, The 3 generations of queens just happened to belong to 3 different countries, having existed for hundreds of years. Therefore it should not be false to say that infinite boundless mountain possesses great power. Otherwise, it would not have been able to maintain its glory and mystery for hundreds of years. Now, since Infinite Boundless Mountain's successor has left the mountain, then the others of Infinite Boundless Mountain should not be too far away. Therefore, the prince now has 3 options: top, middle, and bottom. Emo Shuyao smiled thoughtfully. I am all ears. Su Qingchen smiled. The bottom option is that the prince does not need to care about Dongfang Yu. When she has given up, she will definitely choose someone else. At that time, the Prince Ding mansion will have one more great enemy. The middle option is that the prince complies with Dongfang Yu's wishes, taking her in as a concubine. At that time, Infinite Boundless Mountain will definitely assist the Prince Ding mansion with all its might. Emo Shuyao said, I always only take the best option. Su Qingchen smiled. The best option is to exterminate Infinite Boundless Mountain. From then on, the legend of Heaven's chosen master will cease to exist. Good idea. Emo Shuyao nodded in agreement. Su Qingchen nodded, smiling. It is indeed a good idea. This way, even if the prince unifies the world in the future, he will not have to worry about being controlled by Infinite Boundless Mountain. However, the problem now is, Infinite Boundless Mountain is not so easy to exterminate. Although their Prince Ding mansion disdained Infinite Boundless Mountain, it did not mean that others would think the same. As long as someone was interested in Infinite Boundless Mountain's successor, in Heaven's chosen master, there would naturally be others who would deal with the Prince Ding mansion for them. It was even to the point that if they were not careful, it might lead to people from all over the world simultaneously attacking the Prince Ding mansion. Even if the Prince Ding mansion did not fear them, fighting on multiple fronts was definitely an extremely dangerous thing. Emo Shuyao pondered for a moment before saying, it is also not as difficult as you think. The only ones who can truly go against us are Emo Jingli and Lei Jinting. Lei Jinting was restrained by the Emperor of Xiling and Emo Jingli. There was still Lei Jinting in the middle. If he wanted to go against Ai, he would have to deal with Lei Jinting first. As for the northern tribes and the northern region, they won't have the chance. Su Qingchen also knew that Emo Shuyao's plans for the northern territory of the northern tribes had a high chance of success. There was indeed something that could be done. He raised an eyebrow at Emo Shuyao and asked, Prince, have you decided? Emo Shuyao snorted, not bothering to answer. Actually, there was another path that Su Qingchen did not mention. Mo Shuyao could agree to work together with Infinite Boundless Mountain. After the matter was settled, he could also make a move to deal with Infinite Boundless Mountain. With Emo Shuyao's intelligence, if he really wanted to scheme against Infinite Boundless Mountain, Su Qingchen also felt that it would not be difficult. Looking at the 2 men with serious faces, Yili asked, is it possible that Dongfang Yu is not someone of Infinite Boundless Mountain at all? Don't you feel that she is a little too? Su Qingchen shook his head. Dynasties change. Moreover, it is impossible for a family to always be filled with elites. But that Dongfang Yu is indeed someone of Infinite Boundless Mountain. Yili raised an eyebrow, not understanding. Su Qingchen said with some disgust, the people of Infinite Boundless Mountain's Fong family know a secret art, innately causing others to have a good impression of them. Lier also saw the scene at the banquet last night, didn't you? Yili wanted to say, was that really a good impression? She felt that what Dongfang Yu had aroused was some hidden desire in men. How does Big Brother know so clearly? Yili asked curiously. Su Qingchen did not hide it, saying mildly, isn't there a legend that our Su family's ancestor married a girl of Infinite Boundless Mountain? Then what is the truth? There is indeed such a girl. However, the Su family's ancestor did not marry her. That year he almost fell into her trap. Therefore, he once mentioned this in a letter he left behind, warning his descendants to be careful of Infinite Boundless Mountain's women, Su Qingchen said. So there was such a thing. This was the first time Yili and Emo Shuyao had heard of it. Apart from being a little surprised, the impact on Infinite Boundless Mountain had decreased by a little. Yili pondered for a moment, then asked, since Infinite Boundless Mountain has the ability to choose its master on behalf of the heavens, why was Lei Jinting willing to send Dongfang Yu to the Prince Ding mansion? Could it be that Lei Jinting is also under the control of Infinite Boundless Mountain? Su Qingchen shook his head. It shouldn't be to the extent of being under control. Perhaps Lei Jinting knew that with Lei Tingfeng's ability, he might not be able to deal with Infinite Boundless Mountain. As for the Prince Ding mansion, perhaps Lei Jinting was betting that the Prince Ding mansion would not accept Dongfang Yu. This way, the Prince Ding mansion and Infinite Boundless Mountain would definitely turn against each other. At that time, no matter who Infinite Boundless Mountain chooses to support, with the powerful enemy of the Prince Ding mansion present, he would also be able to take advantage of the situation. Lei Jinting was renowned throughout his life. It was a pity that his greatest regret was his son, Lei Tingfeng. This was not to say that Lei Tingfeng was not good. Lei Tingfeng was very good, whether in terms of personality or ability. However, he was still not good enough. Having grown up under his father's sharp edge since young, Lei Tingfeng clearly did not have the temperament to surpass the Prince Ding mansion's master. Therefore, as the crown prince of Zhenan Palace, Lei Tingfeng was sufficient. However, as the king who shouldered the entire Western Tomb on his shoulders, he was still not strong enough. That is to say, Lei Tingfeng will also not cooperate with Infinite Boundless Mountain, Mo Xiuyao pondered. Then Infinite Boundless Mountain's most likely choice would be Mo Jingli. Mo Jingli, the regent of the Dechu state. Occupying the richest part of the Dechu state Jiangnan, he had millions of soldiers under his command. Most importantly, while he was vicious, he lacked decisiveness and boldness. Such a person was practically the best candidate for a puppet. If it were Mo Xiuyao, he would also choose Mo Jingli. Su Qingchen raised her brows. Do we need to make a move on Mo Jingli now? Mo Xiuyao shook his head, saying, it's still not the time. Right now we still have to deal with Yelu Yi and Ren Qining. However, we still need the things that we need. Send someone to tell Mo Jingli that the things I want will be sent over as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will give the things he wants to Lei Jinting. He only wanted a few treasures. If they were in Lei Jinting's hands, who knew what Lei Jinting would want? While you're at it, let's also reveal Dongfang Yu's intentions to Mo Jingli. See what Mo Jingli will do. If that's the case, then Yi Ying's side. Yi Ying was also an important chess piece. However, if they wanted Yi Ying to work for them while also stuffing people into Mo Jingli's side, that was obviously impossible. Yi Ying would also not be so obedient. Su Qingchen shook her head, saying, Leer, you don't need to worry about this. If Dongfang Yu really helps Mo Jingli, then Yi Ying will be even more reliant on the Prince Ding mansion. The Yi family would never be able to rise again. Yi Ying was still able to sit firmly in the position of princess consort largely because she was Princess Ding's younger sister. Once an extremely important woman appeared by Mo Jingli's side, then the Prince Ding mansion's support and help would become even more important to Yi Ying. Chapter 791. Mr. Qingyun's birthday banquet could be said to have ended perfectly. Many of the guests who had come left one after another. This included Su Qingbai and Mr. Xiuting, who had rushed back to the Western Tomb as soon as possible. After all, the Western Tomb had just been conquered and there was still a need for someone to hold the fort there. As for the dignitaries of the various countries, including Genom of Gojoseon and Mo Jingli, they had no intention of leaving. Everyone understood that the true negotiations and game of chess would only truly begin today. Whoever left at this time would be the one who would be sidelined in this competition, thus losing the opportunity to seize the initiative. Glass City, which was originally already surging with undercurrents, became even more mysterious because of the sudden appearance of the Infinite Boundless Mountain's successor at Mr. Qingyun's birthday banquet. In the Prince Ding mansion, Lei Jinting sat in the study, sipping tea as he sized up Yi Li and Mo Xiuyao, who were seated at the head of the table, his expression somewhat complicated. Although he had already considered the possibility that Mo Xiuyao might reject him when he had brought Mo Xiuyao to Glass City, he still could not help but feel a little shocked when he heard Mo Xiuyao's answer from the start. To be honest, if not for the fact that the Emperor of Xiling had once given birth to a queen of the Infinite Boundless Mountain, Lei Jinting was not sure if he would be able to reject such a temptation. However, Mo Xiuyao had already rejected him. Although he was a little shocked, the overall situation was still in his favor. He naturally would not be so foolish as to push the power of the Infinite Boundless Mountain onto Mo Xiuyao. Prince Ding's decisions always surprise I. Lei Jinting raised the teacup in his hands towards Mo Xiuyao to show his respect. Mo Xiuyao smiled mildly. Genom of Gojoseon overpraises me. Isn't Genom of Gojoseon also not interested? Lei Jinting sighed somewhat regretfully. If I said that I was really not interested in the power of the Infinite Boundless Mountain, that would be a lie to Prince Ding. It was just that, it wasn't suitable. Moreover, even at this age I am still being manipulated by others. I might as well just die here and be done with it. If Infinite Boundless Mountain only had Dongfang Yu alone, it would not be of much use. After Dongfangyu there would definitely be others joining. Lei Zhenting's grandmother was of the infinite boundless mountain. He could be said to be the person who understood infinite boundless mountain the most in this world. Naturally, he would not allow himself to be made into a puppet. I heard that Prince Ding has officially rejected Dongfangyu. However, based on Ai's understanding of her, I'm afraid that she won't give up so easily. Lei Zhenting calmly reminded. Even though he and Mo Shuyao were destined to be enemies, but sometimes they could still work together. And Mo Shuyao raised his eyebrows and said disdainfully, "So what if I don't give up? Infinite Boundless Mountain's descendant is actually like that. That so-called Infinite Boundless Mountain is also about to fall, right?" Dongfangyu was indeed very powerful. At least in terms of martial arts, Mo Shuyao had never seen a woman who could surpass her. Even among men she could probably be ranked in the top 10 of the Jianghu. Since she was from the Infinite Boundless Mountain, she should also be proficient in the 4 arts. Also, with Lei Zhenting's personal guarantee, Dongfangyu was also proficient in medicine. It was just a pity that while Dongfangyu was good at everything, her brain was not too good. Looking at Mo Shuyao and Yi Li smiling at each other, the indistinct intimacy between the two of them made one feel as if there was an invisible layer binding them together, completely different from outsiders, while outsiders were also unable to come between them. Lei Zhenting lowered his eyes slightly, deep in thought. Since someone from Infinite Boundless Mountain has come out, they will definitely have to choose someone to support. Since Prince Ding has already rejected her, who is the most likely candidate? Mo Shuyao did not hide it. Mo Jingli. Lei Zhenting's face darkened slightly. Mo Jingli was currently in a standoff with him at the Cloud Water River. If he had Infinite Boundless Mountain's help, the one who would be out of luck would still be him. Mo Shuyao was far away and naturally did not have anything to do with him for the time being. Looking at Lei Zhenting's displeased expression, Yi Li smiled mildly. "Genom of Gojoseon need not worry. If Mo Jingli is too strong, it would also be of no benefit to our Prince Ding mansion. We will naturally not sit by and do nothing." Lei Zhenting was not someone who could be so easily convinced. Looking at Yi Li, he smiled. "Let Infinite Boundless Mountain support Mo Jingli, and then I and Mo Jingli will fight it out to the death, while the Prince Ding mansion will reap the benefits. The two of you are really good at scheming. Since that is the case, I feel that Renqining is more suitable. Being the orphan of the previous dynasty, wouldn't that be more in line with Infinite Boundless Mountain's choice?" Mo Shuyao's smile was slightly cold. Renqining does not have that fate. Lei Zhenting's gaze hardened as he quickly calculated the meaning behind Mo Shuyao's words. The Prince Ding mansion intended to make a move against the north? He had thought that the Prince Ding mansion's greatest enemy should be the northern tribes. Seeing Lei Zhenting's doubts and guesses, Mo Shuyao did not explain, saying mildly, "Genom of Gojoseon can just watch. Mo Jingli is Infinite Boundless Mountain's only choice. Of course, Genom of Gojoseon has another choice." "I'm all ears," Lei Zhenting said cautiously. With a smile on his face, Mo Shuyao said casually, "Before Infinite Boundless Mountain chooses who to assist, exterminate them." Lei Zhenting could not help but suck in a breath of cold air, staring at Mo Shuyao for a while before finally confirming that he was not joking, and was really proposing such a thing. After a long time, Lei Zhenting sighed. "Prince Ding does not understand Infinite Boundless Mountain very well. Therefore he does not know their strength." Mo Shuyao nodded. "I indeed do not understand Infinite Boundless Mountain very well." The descendants of Infinite Boundless Mountain had never offended anyone from the Prince Ding mansion. Therefore to the Prince Ding mansion, the so-called Infinite Boundless Mountain was no more than an illusory legend. Perhaps the people of Infinite Boundless Mountain themselves also knew that the previous leaders of the Prince Ding mansion had never been suitable for them to manipulate. But, even so, Infinite Boundless Mountain still does not have the strength to contend against a country, right? Since they had planned so many things, it proved that the people of Infinite Boundless Mountain also had ambitions. Harboring ambitions yet always hiding behind others, that could only mean that the other party still did not have the ability to fight for the throne under the heavens. Lei Zhenting shook his head. The reason why the people of Infinite Boundless Mountain have never participated in fighting for the throne under the heavens. It is not that they do not have the strength to do so. Rather, Lei Zhenting hesitated for a moment, seemingly unsure whether he should say it or not. Pausing for a moment, he still finally opened his mouth. The reason why they have always been in seclusion is because the previous lords of Infinite Boundless Mountain have always been women. They simply cannot come out and fight for the position of the 9 and 5 themselves. The Central Plains are not like the Southern Territories. Whether it is the common folk or the generals, they would definitely not tolerate a woman ascending to the throne. Therefore they can only choose to control it from the shadows. After hundreds of years of operation, Infinite Boundless Mountain's influence has long since spread throughout the western tomb of the Dechu state, even the southern Zhao northern tribes, and even the various countries of the western regions have traces of them. Does Prince Ding know why Dongfang Yu has suddenly appeared this time? Mo Shuyao raised his brows, not saying anything. Lei Jinting said coldly, because quite a few of the people Prince Ding killed in the Emperor of Shiling's city belonged to Infinite Boundless Mountain. It was only because of this that the current Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain was alerted. Prince Ding is right. Actually, the best choice for Infinite Boundless Mountain right now is Mo Jingli because currently, Infinite Boundless Mountain has the most influence in the imperial court of the Dechu state. Also, even in your Prince Ding mansion I cannot guarantee that there are no people of Infinite Boundless Mountain. Chapter 792. The Prince Ding mansion had been managed by the successive generations of Prince Ding like an iron bucket. Although Lei Jinting had said so, he also understood. If there was a place that was the hardest to enter in the all-pervasive Infinite Boundless Mountain, it would definitely be the Prince Ding mansion. Mo Shuyao nodded. Many thanks to Genom of Gojoseon for your guidance. I understand. To be honest, I also don't have the time to deal with the people of Infinite Boundless Mountain for now. However, I can guarantee that when you are facing off against Mo Jingli, I definitely won't sneak attack you from the back. In fact, when necessary I can even provide you with some information. Of course, this is only limited to Infinite Boundless Mountain. Lei Jinting naturally knew that although the Dechu state's imperial court had moved south, news of the Prince Ding mansion in the Dechu state did not lag behind in the slightest. In truth, receiving such a promise from Mo Shuyao had already greatly exceeded Lei Jinting's expectations. It was just that how much of Mo Shuyao's words could be trusted was a problem. Mo Shuyao could also see Lei Jinting's doubts as he said in a heavy tone, since I have already made a promise, I naturally won't go back on it. If I were to fight with Genom of Gojoseon, it would still be better to fight openly on the battlefield. Lei Jinting looked deeply at the two of them before standing up and saying, I understand. Since that's the case I will take my leave. I won't see you out. Not long after sending off Lei Jinting, Yelu Hong and Princess Ronghua arrived. The four of them had a secret discussion in the study for close to 2 hours. Naturally there was no way to know what they had discussed. However, the matter of Prince Ding and Yelu Hong's spying had reached Yelu Ye's ears without any hindrance. In the guest house, Yelu Ye's face was as cold as water. Dismissing the guard who had come to report, a cold light flashed in his cold eyes. Yelu Hong wanted to join forces with Mo Shuyao to deal with him. Not so easy. On the bed in the inner room, noble consort Lu leaned against the headboard with a pale face. The wound on his abdomen was still throbbing with pain after a night of rest. Noble consort Lu's expression turned even colder when she recalled how Princess Jin Ning had pierced the hairpin into her abdomen without the slightest hesitation and how obedient her children were to Mo Shuyao and Yi Li. Prince, noble consort Lu called after thinking for a while. A moment later, Yelu Yi walked in with a gloomy face. His gaze towards noble consort Lu was filled with disgust and disdain. Originally they were just using each other. After last night, Yelu Yi looked at noble consort Lu with even more disgust. Although noble consort Lu had helped him a lot during the siege of the Great Chu Kingdom, he still had a lot of things to worry about. But after that it didn't have much use. The only reason he hadn't abandoned her was because this woman knew how to please men, especially his imperial father. Yelu Yi couldn't understand how his wise and mighty imperial father had become so muddle-headed in his 60s. Even though he didn't have any real relationship with noble consort Lu, every time he saw Yelu Hong look at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, Yelu Yi wished he could strangle this woman to death. What is it? Yelu Yi asked coldly. Because of Yelu Ye's cold tone, noble consort Lu bit the corner of her lips in disgust. But she also knew that they were currently in Glass City and she had to rely on Yelu Yi for everything, so she didn't dare to get too angry. She could only force out a smile and said, Your Highness doesn't seem to be in a good mood? Is it because of Yelu Hong in the Prince Ding mansion? Yelu Yi looked at her coldly. Noble consort Lu said lightly, Prince doesn't need to look at me like that, this isn't something difficult to guess. After all, Yelu Hong's crown princess is Princess Ronghua. Even though Princess Ronghua didn't have a good relationship with the Prince Ding mansion when they were in the capital, but this time in Glass City her relationship with Yi Li is very good. If Yelu Hong wants to ally with Prince Ding to deal with the prince, he naturally has to start with his crown princess. Yelu Yi snorted. If Yelu Hong wants to deal with it depends on whether he has the ability. He's just lucky to have a queen as his birth mother. Noble consort Lu said, that's true. It's a pity that the prince is good at everything, but he doesn't have a queen as his mother. These words just happened to poke at Yelu Ye's sore spot. He glanced at her and said, if you want to talk nonsense with then don't say anything. Recuperate well lest you accidentally die in Glass City. Hearing the word die, noble consort Lu couldn't help but tremble slightly. In these 2 years she had experienced too much pain and struggle, and she understood the horror of death even more. She also knew that Yelu Yi was dissatisfied with her. If she angered Yelu Yi, even if others didn't do anything to her, Yelu Yi would use some means to kill her in Glass City. Thinking of this, noble consort Lu couldn't help but resent Yi Li's good luck. She thought that she wasn't inferior to Yi Li in any way, but Yi Li was the princess consort of Ding country and was doted on by her husband and admired by the world, while she had to struggle bitterly just to survive. Seeing that noble consort Lu was tactful, Yelu Yi snorted with satisfaction. Noble consort Lu hurriedly threw away her thoughts and said to Yelu Yi, Prince, if His Majesty knows that the Crown Prince has such a good relationship with Prince Ding, do you think His Majesty will be angry? Even if His Majesty won't do anything to the Crown Prince, what about the Crown Princess? The people of the northern tribes originally rejected outsiders. This was also the reason why noble consort Lu changed her name to Qin Yaina. She had already lost her noble status. If she still stayed in the northern tribes as a woman of Dechu state, she would have been trampled to the bottom of the mud. Hearing this, Yelu Ye's eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. If he could get rid of Yelu Hong, that would be the best. Even if he couldn't, he had to get rid of Princess Ronghua. Once Princess Ronghua was gone, the relationship between Yelu Hong and the Prince Ding mansion would naturally be in danger. Continue. Noble consort Lu nodded. If His Majesty knows that the Crown Prince is colluding with the Prince Ding mansion, then Prince Ding mansion will do something or something will happen at the border. Yelu Yi lowered his eyes and didn't speak. Noble consort Lu knew that he was thinking and didn't disturb him. After a long time, Yelu Yi looked up at noble consort Lu and said, I'll have to rely on you for this. Noble consort Lu understood and smiled. I understand, I will immediately write a secret letter to His Majesty. The king of the northern tribes was old and had become more and more muddle-headed in recent years, so he favored noble consort Lu. He didn't even care about the fact that she was his son's fiancée. Although Yelu Yi only casually said this in order to bring noble consort Lu to the army, after all many people still knew. This caused Yelu Ye's face to turn ugly. Not long after the secret letter was sent out from the post house, a gray figure appeared in the study of the Prince Ding mansion. In the study, Mo Xiuyao and Yi Li sat opposite Yelu Hong and Princess Ronghua, leisurely drinking tea. Taking the secret letter from Jin, Mo Xiuyao didn't read it and just handed it to Yelu Hong. Yelu Hong silently opened the letter and read it. His face couldn't help but turn green and he slammed the letter on the table. Princess Ronghua frowned with worry, picked up the letter and read it. Her face was also a little ugly. If this letter was sent to the northern tribes, the first unlucky person would be her. Chapter 793. Mo Xiuyao smiled faintly. Prince Yelu doesn't need to worry. In Glass City, if I don't agree, even a mosquito won't be able to fly out. But once Yelu Yi returns to the northern tribes, I won't be able to do anything. Yelu Hong looked at Mo Xiuyao and said calmly, Doesn't Prince Ding just want to see us brothers fight? Mo Xiuyao smiled. Prince Yelu, what you mean is that if I didn't exist you brothers would get along well? All these years I haven't done anything to the northern tribes. Yelu Hong was silent. It wasn't just these years. In fact, ever since he was made the crown prince he had never stopped fighting with Yelu Yi. Don't think that the tribes outside the Great Wall didn't fight and scheme against each other. In fact, their fights were even more vicious and bloody than those hidden in the dark. Yelu Yi was a very ambitious person, but Yelu Hong wasn't a soft egg that could be bullied by anyone. Since he was already the crown prince, he couldn't back down. Therefore, the conflict between the two brothers wasn't something that anyone could change. Although he understood that Emo Xiuyao was right, it didn't change the fact that he had been tricked by Emo Xiuyao. Emo Xiuyao smiled. Prince Yelu, you don't need to worry too much. At least you and I have the same goal, don't we? You don't want to be defeated by Yelu Yi. I want to drive the northern tribes out of the Central Plains and take a few people's lives. Yelu Hong said unhappily, I am the crown prince of the northern tribes. Did driving the northern tribes out of the Central Plains sound good to him? Although Yelu Yi had taken the land, Yelu Hong was indeed jealous. But it was still the land that the northern tribes had taken. The Central Plains was rich. Who wouldn't want it if they could? Emo Xiuyao said lightly, the Central Plains is different from the northern tribes. Does Prince Yelu really think that the northern tribes can do anything in the Central Plains? Yelu Hong raised his eyebrows, unconvinced. Prince Ding, how do you know that it can't be done? At least not now, Emo Xiuyao retorted bluntly. The Central Plains isn't that weak. Even without the Dechu state, there was still the Prince Ding mansion. Even without the Prince Ding mansion, there was still the West Hill. The northern tribes want to take over the Central Plains, but I'm afraid they are not strong enough. Even though this was the truth, it was also a warning. Although Yelu Hong was unwilling, he knew that what Emo Xiuyao said was the truth. Throughout history, the northern tribes had attempted to invade the Central Plains countless times. However, none of them succeeded even once. Even though the dynasties in the Central Plains had declined to the extreme, the ones who eventually destroyed them were still the Central Plains people themselves. Perhaps the people of the Central Plains were very fond of internal strife, which was why they had been replaced generation after generation. But at the same time, they were also very determined to resist the invasion of foreign races. When necessary, they could even put aside their previous grudges and join forces to fight against foreign enemies. This was also the reason why many foreign races had failed to invade them in the end. Yelu Hong sighed and said, perhaps Prince Ding is right. He wasn't sitting here to discuss with Emo Xiuyao whether the northern tribes should invade the Central Plains. Before he could sit on the throne of the northern tribes, he didn't have the right to discuss this issue. Emo Xiuyao didn't want to dwell on this matter. He looked at Yelu Hong and smiled. Prince Yelu, don't worry. I also have no interest in the northern tribes. So, there isn't any conflict of interest between us, is there? After Yelu Yi is finished, and Prince Yelu becomes the king of the northern tribes, I will take back what originally belonged to the Central Plains people. Besides, there is almost no need for Prince Yelu to do anything. In fact, Prince Yelu is the one who reaps the benefits. Then what are Prince Ding's plans? Yelu Hong had to admit that he was indeed moved by Emo Xiuyao's words. As the prince of the northern tribes, he definitely wouldn't have any thoughts of betraying the country by colluding with the Prince Ding mansion. But his position as the prince wasn't that comfortable. Although his mother was the queen of the northern tribes, his father favored Yelu Yi's mother more. More importantly, Yelu Yi had more military power behind him than he did. And in the northern tribes, without enough military power, you were nothing. In the past year, his father had been very fond of the woman Yelu Yi brought back. Although he often mocked Yelu Yi, the pressure on him had increased. If not for the fact that he had no other choice, he definitely wouldn't accept the olive branch from the Prince Ding mansion. He wouldn't betray the northern tribes, but he had to protect his position and life. Emo Xiuyao smiled faintly and looked at Yi Li beside him. Just now, Yi Li had been writing on the paper. Now she put down the pen and handed the letter full of words to Yelu Hong. Yelu Hong took the letter and was stunned. The handwriting on the letter was at least 90% similar to the previous one, but the content was completely different. Yelu Ye's letter was naturally about Yelu Hong colluding with Prince Ding to betray the country. But the name of the main character in this letter was changed to Yelu Yi himself. The other party wasn't the Prince Ding mansion, but the North's Ren Qining. Previously, when Ren Qining and Yelu Yi signed the treaty at the Purple Thorns Pass, it was Yelu Yi who acted first and reported later. It wasn't impossible to make a fuss about this matter. Thinking of this, Yelu Hong looked at Yi Li with admiration. Thank you, princess. Yi Li smiled faintly. Crown Prince doesn't need to be so polite. Although my handwriting is slightly different from noble consort Lu's, it shouldn't be a big problem. If it was in the Dechu state, there might be some problems. The Dechu state's court didn't lack famous calligraphers. But in the royal house of the northern tribes, It was already very good to be able to completely translate a letter, let alone distinguish the handwriting. Even if someone compared noble consort Lu's handwriting, they probably wouldn't be able to see the small difference. But even if the king can cover it up for now, when Yelu Yi and noble consort Lu return to the northern tribes, it will still be exposed. Princess Ronghua frowned and said worriedly. Mo Xiuyao said, "You don't need to worry too much about this. In a short time, Yelu Yi probably won't be able to return to the royal house of the northern tribes. As long as Crown Prince Yelu doesn't let him write a letter to the king of the northern tribes, it's fine. As for noble consort Lu, she doesn't need to go back." With the king of the northern tribes' love for noble consort Lu, if she really returned to the royal house of the northern tribes, it wouldn't be a good thing. Moreover, from the beginning, Mo Xiuyao didn't plan to let those two people leave the Dechu state. But there's one more thing that I need the crown prince's help with. So many things were planned by Mo Xiuyao, and Yi Li Yeluhong naturally knew that he couldn't just do nothing. He nodded and said, "Prince Ding, just say it." Mo Xiuyao said lightly, "Send Helianjun to the Central Plains to assist Yelu Yi." This. Yeluhong was a little hesitant. Although Helianjun gradually fell out of favor because of the defeat, he was still Yelu Ye's uncle. In these years there were signs of him gradually recovering. Not to mention many of the generals in the Northern Tribes army used to be Helianjun's subordinates. If he really led the army, he was afraid that he would be nurturing a tiger. "Don't worry, Helianjun, I will help you take care of it." Yeluhong just remembered that Mo Xiuyao and Helianjun had a deep hatred for each other. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and said, "In that case, I will go back and report to father to allow Helianjun to lead the army. Thank you." Chapter 794. While Yi Li and Mo Xiuyao were busy dealing with the people in power, Su Qingshan was not efficient at all. Mo Xiuyao finally found his conscience and realized that he had not handled the matter properly this time. It was very rare for him to take over young Master Qingshan's previous work so that young Master Qingshan could concentrate on dealing with a certain woman. Within a few days, almost the entire Ding Wangfu knew that there was a young lady who was chasing after young Master Qingshan and wanted to marry him. It was a pity that young Master Qingshan did not fancy her and avoided her like the plague. Mrs. Su, who was worried about her eldest son's marriage, also heard the news and came. But less than a quarter of an hour after seeing Dongfang Yu, Mrs. Su went back in disappointment. In private she said to second Madame Su, "I'd rather Qingshan never marry a wife in his lifetime than let him marry a wife who daydreams all day long and insists on forcing others to be with her." No matter what the Su family's attitude was, Dongfang Yu came to the Prince Ding mansion every day to ask for young Master Qingshan's marriage. It became a classic funny story that people in the Prince Ding mansion must see every day. Some people even began to bet on how long young Master Qingshan could hold on and whether he would marry Dongfang Yu. "Young Master, Miss Dongfang wants to see you." Young Master Qingshan, who rarely had half a day of leisure, heard the guard's report. Looking at the guard's smiling face, young Master Qingshan, who had always been gentle and elegant, wanted to tear Mo Xiuyao into pieces. Rubbing his eyebrows, Su Qingshan said, "Tell Miss Dongfang that I'm not here." For the first time in his life, young Master Qingshan wanted to run away. The guard looked at him awkwardly and said, "Miss Dongfang said that she knew young Master Qingshan was in the mansion. If young Master Qingshan doesn't want to see her, she will wait at the gate and won't leave." "Young Master, there are many people watching at the gate." Su Qingshan was so angry that he laughed. But on second thought, although these guards wanted to watch the fun, they were indeed in a dilemma. Dongfang Yu's identity was special. At the very least, before the Prince Ding mansion investigated the background of Infinite Boundless Mountain, they could not be too forceful with her. Sighing helplessly, Su Qingshan nodded and said, "Please invite Miss Dongfang in." The guard took the order and left. Su Qingyan popped out of the door and looked at Su Qingshan with a grin. "Big brother, that Dongfang Yu came to find you again?" Su Qingshan glanced at him indifferently and asked, "If you have nothing to do, go and help me receive the guests. Don't wander around all day with nothing to do." Su Qingyan shrunk his neck and looked at Su Qingshan pitifully. These days even Big Brother was starting to vent his anger on him. He had been busy in the north for more than a year. It was not easy for him to take advantage of his grandfather's birthday to come back and rest for a few days. How did it become idle? Su Qingyan carefully stepped into the study and obediently stood in front of Su Qingchen as punishment. Big brother, I was wrong. Su Qingchen smiled and asked, what were you wrong about? Su Qingyan sternly said, I shouldn't have wandered around aimlessly. I'll immediately go help father and uncle. Then I'll go to grandfather to fulfill my filial piety. My biggest mistake was that I shouldn't have gloated in front of big brother. Su Qingchen nodded with satisfaction and smiled. Since you know you were wrong, accompany big brother to receive Miss Dongfang. Su Qingyan's eyes widened in horror. He had seen the power of that Dongfang Yu. No matter who she met, she dared to open her mouth and preach. She dared to talk about the way of a ruler in front of Prince Ding. She dared to talk about the way of a wife in front of Sister Liu. She even dared to talk about the way of a mother in front of his mother. Had she ever been a mother? Su Qingyan even suspected that if she was in front of his grandfather, she would also dare to teach him how to be a teacher. Just thinking about it was like a nightmare. Big brother, there's no need, right? Miss Dongfang is here for you. Su Qingchen smiled and said, how can that be? Miss Dongfang is an important guest of the Prince Ding mansion. It will be more formal if you and I receive her together. Su Qingyan still wanted to say something to beg big brother to let him go, but a figure in white appeared at the door. Dongfang Yu stood at the door and saw that Su Qingyan was also there. She frowned slightly and nodded. Why is fifth young master here? Su Qingyan could not help but widen his eyes. This girl's words were too strange. What did she mean by why was he here? Even if the Prince Ding mansion was not his home, it was still his cousin's home. It should be more normal than her who had nothing to do with him, right? Also, what did she mean by frowning and nodding arrogantly? Taking a deep breath, fifth young master Su finally remembered how to treat a guest. His handsome face stiffened as he nodded and said, isn't Miss Dongfang here too? Dongfang Yu could not help but widen her eyes. Even if she was slow, she could feel the hostility in Su Qingyan's words. She just did not understand why Su Qingyan was so rude to her. She did not expect that when she greeted Su Qingyan just now, he was also rude. Su Qingchen smiled and said, Miss Dongfang, please sit down. I don't know why you came so early in the morning. What do you want to say? Dongfang Yu nodded and said, I want to ask if young Master Qingchen is willing to marry me. Hearing this, Su Qingchen's smile froze. Su Qingyan's mouth twitched. After a pause, Su Qingchen lowered his eyes and drank his tea indifferently. After a moment of silence, he said, Miss Dongfang, I remember that I have already given you this answer. I refuse. Why? Dongfang Yu frowned. Obviously, she could not understand why Su Qingchen would refuse her. After thinking for a while, she said, I heard that young Master Qingchen and the Queen of Nanzhao have an unusual relationship. But the Queen of Nanzhao is already married and is about to have a child. Since young Master Qingchen is a talent, you should know when to make a decision. Moreover, I am not worse than the Queen of Nanzhao. As long as it is something she knows how to do, I can do it better than her. Miss Dongfang. Su Qingchen frowned. A trace of displeasure appeared on his handsome face. He said in a low voice, the Queen of Nanzhao and I are just friends. Please do not spread nonsense. As a man, I am fine with it. But the Queen of Nanzhao and her husband are very close. Miss Dongfang. Dongfang Yu was stunned. She nodded and said, okay, I am wrong. Since that is the case, why is young Master Qingchen unwilling to marry me? Su Qingyan, who was listening by the side, deeply felt that even though his brother was full of wisdom and schemes, people like Dongfang Yu were his nemesis. Lightly coughing to clear his throat, Su Qingyan asked with a smile, Miss Dongfang, why does my brother have to marry you? Dongfang Yu said matter-of-factly, young Master Qingchen is Princess Ding's cousin. After young Master Qingchen and I get married, our infinite boundless mountain will naturally help Prince Ding. I will also secretly assist Prince Ding to achieve great things. Is there anything wrong with that? Su Qingyan nodded and smiled, there is nothing wrong with that. But, why does the Prince Ding mansion need you to assist? Could it be that without you the Prince Ding mansion can't achieve great things? Chapter 795. Such a direct and almost rude question caused Dongfang Yu a lot of trouble. She frowned and thought for a moment, then said, but Prince Ding is the future emperor I chose. Naturally, I need to assist him. Su Qingyan rolled his eyes and said, without your assistance, the Prince Ding mansion has always been good. With me, the Prince Ding mansion will naturally be better. Dongfang Yu finally found her confidence and said, after so many years, the Prince Ding mansion still can't get rid of the predicament of being surrounded by strong enemies. Isn't that enough to prove that the assistants around Prince Ding are not capable enough? The two brothers were silent. This was definitely an indiscriminate attack. In one sentence she scolded everyone in the Prince Ding mansion, old and young. Predicament my ass, Su Qingyan cursed in his heart. Was Dongfang Yu blind? Now the Prince Ding mansion was at least the second largest if not the largest in all the countries. Its military strength was so strong that no one dared to fight against it. What else could it want? In just a few years, it was attacked from all sides and suddenly swept the world. Such a legend could not be written in a storybook. Su Qingyan secretly circulated his qi, looked at Dongfang Yu and nodded. I understand. In fact, we are very happy that Miss Dongfang is willing to assist Prince Ding. Su Qingchen, who was rubbing the teacup, raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at his eccentric fifth brother without saying anything. Dongfang Yu looked at Su Qingyan with some confusion, not knowing why he suddenly changed his mind. Su Qingyan coughed softly and said seriously, Director Emo of the Prince Ding mansion has lost his wife for many years, and has been single all the time. But he is one of Prince Ding's most trusted people. If Miss Dongfang is willing to marry him, I believe that both Prince Ding and the princess will believe in the sincerity of Miss Dongfang and the boundless mountain. Big brother, what do you think? This time it was young Master Qingchen's turn to twitch the corner of his mouth. But he was good at hiding it, so he naturally raised the teacup to cover his mouth. He nodded calmly and said, Fifth brother, you are right. Well, Director Emo? Dongfang Yu was dumbfounded. He couldn't remember who this Director Emo was. In fact, Dongfang Yu had seen Director Emo several times, but she was so arrogant that she only nodded slightly in front of fifth young Master Su. Even if Director Emo had a special status in her eyes, he was just a servant of the Prince Ding mansion. Naturally, she would not take it to heart. Su Qingyan nodded and said sincerely, that's right, it's that uncle in black clothes. Speaking of which, in the entire Glass City, he's the only uncle who can still look so heroic while wearing the black clothes of the Prince Ding mansion. The other older men were either generals or scholars. Only Director Mo, who had a martial arts background but had always been doing literary work, could make the black outfit look so heroic and elegant. Dongfang Yu immediately remembered the gray-haired director in black when he came to the Prince Ding mansion for the first time. His face suddenly became very embarrassed. Even when Emo Shuyao asked her to get lost in front of so many people, her face was not so ugly. How can that be? Dongfang Yu almost reflexively refused. Su Qingyan blinked and said, why not? Although our Su family is very close to Prince Ding, we can't compare to the old people who have been in the Prince Ding mansion for many generations. Director Mo's butler has been loyal to the Prince Ding mansion for many generations. Miss Dongfang doesn't care who she marries, right? Isn't it good to marry Director Mo? I believe that although Director Mo has no intention to marry, he will sacrifice himself for the Prince Ding mansion without hesitation. But my brother is different. Our Su family cares a lot about who my brother marries. My grandfather said, it's better to have nothing than to have something substandard. It was probably the first time in Dongfang Yu's life that she met someone who spoke like Su Qingyan. Her pretty face was red, purple and green. It was as colorful as a color palette. Su Qingchen secretly gave Su Qingyan an admiring look. She put down her teacup and said to Dongfang Yu, Miss Dongfang, fifth brother is right. If Miss is willing, the Prince Ding mansion will naturally welcome you. I can also ask the prince to personally go to the Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain to propose marriage. What do you think? No. Dongfang Yu almost screamed. This change in expression instantly made the originally strange and mysterious aura on her disappear without a trace. It was as if she was an ordinary shrewish girl who was dissatisfied with her marriage. That's an old man. And a servant at that. How can he be good enough for me? Su Qingchen and Su Qingyan's faces darkened slightly. They did not comment on Dongfang Yu's words. It was this woman who was not good enough for Director Mo. Although Director Mo was not young anymore, his looks were not bad and he did not look old. He also held the position of the Prince Ding mansion's manager. He was definitely Prince Ding's most trusted aide. It was also because he had no intention of marrying a wife. If he really wanted to marry a wife, there would probably be many families in Glass City who would rush to marry their daughters over. Although it was not very nice to anger a girl like this, Su Qingchen was really annoyed by Dongfang Yu these days. Seeing her like this now, the displeasure on her face became even more obvious. Since that's the case, it looks like Miss Dongfang is not very sincere. Originally, the Prince Ding mansion did not need any capable people to help. Miss, please leave. Su Qingchen said mildly as she sent the guest off. Dongfang Yu returned in defeat once again. She glared bitterly at Su Qingyan, threw down the words "I won't give up," and turned to leave. Once she left, the study was silent for a moment. Su Qingyan finally could not help but burst into laughter. Looking at her younger brother who was convulsing with laughter, Su Qingchen shook her head mildly and did not say anything. Su Qingyan rubbed his stomach with one hand and wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes with the other. He asked, "Big brother, is this woman really from Infinite Boundless Mountain?" Su Qingchen said mildly, "Whether she is or not, we will know very soon. But it shouldn't be wrong. That's why people cannot leave the secular world for too long. Otherwise, they might accidentally teach such a weirdo. I wonder if the Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain will regret seeing this Miss Dongfang." "First young master, fifth young master, prince and princess invite you in." At the door, Director Imo was standing there, looking at the two with an indifferent expression. The two people who did not know martial arts looked at each other. Thinking of how they had just insulted fifth young master Su, they felt a little guilty. "Director Yu, when did you come?" Director Imo said mildly. "Fifth young master said that I would sacrifice myself for the Prince Ding mansion without hesitation. Thank you for your praise." Su Qingyan blushed with shame. Director Imo is too polite. Dongfang Yu's expression was still very ugly when she left the Prince Ding mansion. Along the way, the gazes that were sizing her up made her feel uncomfortable, as if needles were stabbing her. She was not a wooden person who did not feel anything. Of course, she could feel the gazes and words of the people around her. Although many people treated Su Qingchen as a joke, Su Qingchen had suffered an undeserved calamity in this matter. In reality, the person that everyone looked down on and mocked was only Dongfang Yu. But Dongfang Yu only treated this as a trial and error on her path to success. Therefore, she always gritted her teeth and acted as if nothing had happened. But today, being mocked and teased by Su Qingyan so openly, no matter how thick her skin was, she could not hold it in any longer. Chapter 796. She clearly wanted to help the Prince Ding mansion. She didn't believe that Prince Ding and Su Qingchen didn't know how much she and Infinite Boundless Mountain could bring to the Prince Ding mansion. But they just didn't think much of her. For a moment, Dongfang Yu hated Prince Ding for failing to recognize Mount Tai, and hated the Su family for rejecting her. If it were someone else, she would have long since tried to build a good relationship with Infinite Boundless Mountain. But the Prince Ding mansion was so arrogant and rude. But even so, her ambition and willpower would not change. Before leaving the mountain, she would definitely make a contribution that would surpass that of her ancestors. She would definitely help create an emperor who would unify the world, and let the whole world know the name of Infinite Boundless Mountain. "Miss Dongfang." Dongfang Yu walked out of the Prince Ding mansion absent-mindedly, and a low male voice came from behind her. Dongfang Yu looked back only to see Emo Jingli standing not far behind her looking at her. She immediately restrained her feelings of depression and resentment, and raised her head to look at Emo Jingli calmly. It had to be said that Dongfang Yu's so-called secret technique was pretty good. The moment she raised her head, it was as if she had become a different person. The expression on her beautiful face was indifferent, without a smile, but it gave people a kind of attraction that they couldn't look away from. She was like a fairy bathed in a mysterious glow. For a moment, Emo Jingli even felt his heart skip a beat. "What's the matter, Prince Li?" Emo Jingli calmed himself down and walked up to Dongfang Yu. He lowered his head to look at Dongfang Yu, saying, "Is Miss Dongfang in a bad mood?" Dongfang Yu was not stupid. How could she not see that Emo Jingli was trying to get close to her? But she quickly found that Prince Li's attentiveness didn't make her happy. Instead, she clearly remembered that the Prince Ding mansion and the Su family had mercilessly rejected her. She immediately felt a little bored. She glanced at Emo Jingli and then lowered her eyes indifferently. As long as he did not look at Dongfang Yu's face and eyes, Emo Jingli's senses were still normal. Naturally, he could feel Dongfang Yu's coldness towards him. Did Miss Dongfang go to the Prince Ding mansion again? Emo Jingli did not mind and asked as he walked calmly beside Dongfang Yu. Dong Fengyu stopped, looked at Emo Jingli seriously and asked, "Does Prince Li look down on me?" Emo Jingli shook his head and said, "Why would I? However, I do have some advice for you so that you won't run into a wall again." Dong Fengyu was startled. "Tell me about it." Emo Jingli said, "Emo Shuyao's feelings for Yi Li are known throughout the world. Emo Shuyao will not do anything that might upset Princess Ding." Dong Fengyu nodded and said, "I already know that, so I don't intend to get between Prince Ding and Princess Ding." Emo Jingli continued, "I know that you think Su Qingchen is not bad, but the Su family, especially Su Qingchen, looks gentle and elegant, but I'm afraid that he is even more arrogant than Emo Shuyao. He will never accept a marriage without feelings. So after so many years, Su Qingchen is over 30 years old but still hasn't married. Even Mr. Qingyun, Mr. Hongyu and the others can't force him to do anything. If you keep pestering him like this, I'm afraid it will backfire." Dong Fengyu's heart skipped a beat and she said thoughtfully, "Is that so? Then what if I make Su Qingchen fall in love with me?" Looking at her expression, Emo Jingli somewhat understood what she wanted to say. He smiled faintly and said, "Besides, there is one more thing. The Su family has a strict upbringing. Although everyone in the Su family dotes on Princess Ding so they don't restrict her, it's actually because the family name of the Prince Ding mansion is Yi, and the family name of the bride is Emo, not Su. No matter how talented the women of the Su family are, they have to stay at home to help their husbands and raise their children. Even today's first Madame Su, second Madame Su and second Madame Su, which one of them wasn't a famous talented woman? But now he was still unknown to the public. So, if you really want to marry into the Su family, I'm afraid you have to think it over carefully." Dong Fengyu glanced at him faintly and said, "I know what you are thinking, but I've already chosen the Prince Ding mansion. No matter how much you think about it, it's useless." The smile on Emo Jingli's face suddenly froze. He forced a smile and said, "You must be joking, Mississippi. I was just reminding you out of kindness." Dong Fengyu snorted softly and ignored Emo Jingli. She went to her temporary residence. Behind her, Emo Jingli looked at her leaving figure, his eyes shining with determination. Dong Fengyu didn't stay in the post house with Genom of Gojoseon. Genom of Gojoseon was right. The power of the infinite boundless mountain was indeed spread all over the world. Even in Glass City they had their stronghold. The place where Dong Fengyu stood was a rather spacious empty courtyard in Glass City. When the Mahist army first came to Glass City, many officials and rich businessmen fled to the pass, and many houses in the city were empty. This house had been bought at that time, but no one had moved in until Dong Fengyu's arrival. Dong Fengyu waved away the servants who came to greet her and turned back to her room. As soon as she closed the door and turned around, she saw a figure sitting by her bed. The light in the room was dim and there were layers of gauze. She couldn't see who it was. With a flick of her wrist, 2 short swords appeared in her hands. Dong Fengyu pointed at the person and said sternly, "Who are you?" Without waiting for the person to answer, she pounced forward. The short swords in her hands turned into 2 streaks of silver light that cut through the layers of gauze. "You are..." A low and slightly hoarse female voice sounded in the room. Dong Fengyu was shocked. She hurriedly defended herself and landed on the ground. Seeing the figure walking out, she hurriedly knelt down and bowed, "Master." It was a middle-aged woman who looked to be in her 40s or 50s. Her appearance was more outstanding than Dong Fengyu's. Although her youth was fleeting, she was still charming. Looking at Dong Fengyu indifferently, the woman nodded and said, "You're quite bold." Dong Fengyu was startled. She said with some panic, "Master, did you do something wrong?" The woman stared at Dong Fengyu for a while. Then she raised her hand and slapped her hard on the face. Dong Fengyu's white jade-like face instantly turned red. But facing the woman's cold and indifferent gaze, she didn't dare to say anything. She only heard the woman say, "You dared to sneak down the mountain after eavesdropping on my conversation with the elder? It's fine if you go down the mountain. With your martial arts, no one can bully you when you're outside. But you actually dared to come and find Prince Ding. Who dares to be so bold as you? Infinite Boundless Mountain has never chosen the Prince Ding mansion for so many years. Do you know why?" Chapter 797. Hearing her master's words, Dong Fengyu could not help but be taken aback. The successors of Infinite Boundless Mountain indeed had nothing to do with the Prince Ding mansion. However, she had not thought too much about it at the time, only taking it that she was not fated with the Prince Ding mansion. After all, Infinite Boundless Mountain was supposed to assist the Emperor, and the original Prince Ding mansion could not possibly have produced the previous Emperor. It was precisely because of this that she was even more concerned about the Prince Ding mansion. If she could do something that her predecessors had not been able to do, her master would definitely be very happy, and she would also become the most powerful successor of Infinite Boundless Mountain. However, she had never thought that the first thing her master did when she saw her was to give her a vicious slap. "Master." Covering her reddened face, Dongfang Yu looked at the middle-aged woman, feeling wronged. This middle-aged woman was the current lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain, and also Dongfang Yu's master. Looking at the child, she had raised herself, looking at her with teary eyes. The lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain similarly did not feel good. Dongfang Yu was the most talented disciple she had ever seen. Her secret martial arts and talents were even more outstanding than her own when she was young. She had also always been proud of her disciple. However, she did not know where exactly she had gone wrong. She had clearly already taught her some strategies and methods that she should have learnt, but this disciple seemed to have been born ignorant. Her way of dealing with people, interacting with people, and even her grasp of people's hearts were so childish that it was laughable. In this aspect, she could not even be compared to a child sweeping in Infinite Boundless Mountain. By the time she had discovered these inadequacies, it was already too late. Dongfang Yu's character had already been formed. An intelligent and beautiful girl who had been pampered since she was young, never having suffered any setbacks or experiences. This made Dongfang Yu completely ignorant of the ways of the world. At the end of the day, this world was still made up of people. If one could not even understand people's hearts, what was the use of being so knowledgeable? Just like this time, Dongfang Yu had only felt a headache from the few words she had spoken with the elder, and had simply thought that Emo Xiuyao was the most suitable candidate for the successor of Infinite Boundless Mountain. However, she had not thought at all about what kind of person Emo Xiuyao was, or whether he could be controlled by her. By the time she had rushed over to Glass City after receiving the news, Dongfang Yu had already caused a huge commotion in Glass City. Virtually everyone under the heavens already knew that Infinite Boundless Mountain had chosen Prince Ding as their assistant. Currently, Infinite Boundless Mountain was already riding a tiger and finding it hard to back down. The middle-aged woman sighed helplessly as she looked at the innocent and aggrieved look of her beloved disciple whom she had raised from a young age. She leaned over and pulled her up. Dongfang Yu also knew that his master was really angry this time. He stood up and called out to his master nervously. The middle-aged woman pulled her to the side and sat down. Looking at her slightly red eyes, she asked softly, "You've been down the mountain for so long. Did you suffer any grievances?" Dongfang Yu bit the corner of her lips, tears welling up in her eyes. These days she had suffered more grievances in the Prince Ding mansion than she had in her entire life. Previously, she had still been able to encourage herself by saying that everything was for the sake of Infinite Boundless Mountain. However, that slap from her master just now had more or less made her understand that her previous actions might have been wrong. The middle-aged woman said helplessly, "It's master's fault. Master did not teach you well." "No." Dongfang Yu shook her head and said, "It's my fault. I acted impulsively and made master worry." No matter what, Dongfang Yu still respected her master who had raised her from a young age. Seeing her master blaming herself so much, she hurriedly shook her head and said. The middle-aged woman patted the back of her hand and said softly, "All right, tell master what happened these days. Master will think of a way." Ever since they had discovered that they could not change Dongfang Yu's character, Infinite Boundless Mountain had already thought of a remedy. Originally, they had not intended to let Dongfang Yu come down the mountain alone to gain experience. However, they did not expect Dongfang Yu to act first and report later. Although the current situation was a little tricky, it was not impossible to solve. Only then did Dongfang Yu slowly explain in detail what had happened after she had left the mountain. Although she did not know the ways of the world, her martial arts and the careful guidance of Infinite Boundless Mountain for more than 10 years were not fake. Therefore, after leaving the mountain, Dongfang Yu did not suffer. She directly went to Genom of Gojoseon and Lei Jinting. After Lei Jinting confirmed her thoughts and identity, he took care of the rest. She only needed an appropriate opportunity to appear in front of Prince Ding. On the contrary, after seeing Prince Ding, she suffered a lot of grievances and suffering. Humans were selfish. Although it was her own child's fault, After hearing the Prince Ding Mansion's merciless rejection and ridicule of Dongfang Yu, the middle-aged woman could not help but be angry. Her beautiful face that still retained its charm seemed to be covered by a layer of ice in an instant. Good. What a good Prince Ding Mansion. How dare you look down on Infinite Boundless Mountain? The people of Infinite Boundless Mountain had never thought that their power was inferior to the Prince Ding Mansion. The reason why they had never provoked the people of Prince Ding Mansion was that the character and ability of the past Prince Ding were very difficult to grasp. However, this did not mean that they would feel that they were inferior to the Prince Ding Mansion because of this. There was also the Su family. Not only were there records of Infinite Boundless Mountain in the handwritten notes of the Su family's ancestors. The handwritten notes of the ancestors of Infinite Boundless Mountain were also recorded in the handwritten notes of the Prince Ding Mansion. This was the second time that the Su family had rejected Infinite Boundless Mountain. Master, what should I do now? Dongfang Yu asked a little nervously. She was also a person with dignity. She would not be willing to give up Su Qingshan like this. After being mercilessly ridiculed by the Su family's brothers, Dongfang Yu's obsession with the Prince Ding Mansion had actually been slowly transferred to Su Qingshan. Originally, she wanted to marry Su Qingshan in order to get close to the Prince Ding Mansion. Mo Shuyao was the person she would assist in the future. Since he was unwilling to marry her, of course she would not force her future monarch to be unhappy. However, Su Qingshan's unhesitant rejection and Su Qingyan's ridicule were not things that Dongfang Yu could accept. The middle-aged woman lowered her eyebrows in deep thought. She sighed slightly and said, "Since you have already done this. If you change your mind at the last minute, how can Infinite Boundless Mountain still have the face to stand in the world?" In fact, if it was really Dongfang Yu who changed her mind and looked down on the Prince Ding Mansion, it would be fine. However, almost everyone in the world now knew that it was the Prince Ding Mansion that looked down on Dongfang Yu. If Infinite Boundless Mountain changed its stance and supported someone else at this time, it would confirm this rumor. Even if they really did choose someone else in the future, their status and prestige in the eyes of the other party would be greatly reduced. Hearing her master say this, Dongfang Yu's eyes could not help but light up slightly. "Master, what should we do now?" The middle-aged woman snorted softly and said, "Tomorrow I will personally go to the Prince Ding Mansion to visit Prince Ding and the first young master of the Su family. Don't worry, Master will not let anyone bully you." Dongfang Yu's beautiful face could not help but reveal a pure and happy smile. "Yuer knows that Master is the best." Here Dongfang Yu and the middle-aged woman were currently discussing how to deal with the Prince Ding Mansion. On the other side, the Prince Ding Mansion had also received the news that the Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain had entered the city. Infinite Boundless Mountain's deep roots and shocking strength elsewhere. However, Glass City was under the absolute control of the Prince Ding Mansion. It was already not easy for Infinite Boundless Mountain to be able to set up a few spies in Glass City. For something as big as the Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain entering Glass City, it was basically impossible for him to do it without anyone knowing. Therefore, when the Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain thought that he was infallible and wanted to negotiate with the Prince Ding Mansion for his disciple, the Prince Ding Mansion had also opened up a massive net towards Infinite Boundless Mountain. Chapter 798. In the Prince Ding Mansion, Mo Shuyao casually passed the information he had just obtained to Su Qingshan. Smiling, he said, "Brother Qingshan, the Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain has come. Does this count as—" Before he had finished speaking, Yili sitting beside him pinched him viciously on the waist. Yili did not hold back in the slightest in this pinch. It was just that her actions were so secretive that Su Qingshan and Su Qingyan sitting opposite her did not notice it. Therefore, the two of them only looked strangely at Mo Shuyao, who had stopped halfway through his words, his face contorting slightly before he smiled fawningly at Yili. Having known Mo Shuyao for so many years, Su Qingshan also knew that Mo Shuyao's mouth would not be able to spit out any good words. Not wanting to get to the bottom of it, he wanted him to finish speaking, lest he angered himself for no reason. Silently reading the secret letter that Mo Shuyao had handed over, Su Qingshan frowned slightly. This Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain is not as easy to deal with as Dongfang Yu. Is there any news from Genom of Gojoseon's side? Yili said. Genom of Gojoseon's side does not know much either. They only know that this generation's Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain is called Dongfang Hui, and can be considered the grandniece of Lei Zhenting's grandmother. Ever since Lei Zhenting's father succeeded the throne, the Emperor of Shiling's interactions with Infinite Boundless Mountain have gradually decreased. Therefore they do not know much about this either. Emo Xiuyao said, it should be that the Emperor of Shiling's understanding of Infinite Boundless Mountain has decreased. However, Infinite Boundless Mountain's control over the Emperor of Shiling's side has probably not decreased. Otherwise, Enchanting would not be so wary of Infinite Boundless Mountain. Su Qingchen nodded, saying, Prince is right. With Dongfang Yu's intelligence, being able to accurately find Enchanting the moment he descended the mountain was sufficient to show that Infinite Boundless Mountain's control and understanding of the outside world had never weakened. I reckon that Enchanting's inability to replace the Emperor of Shiling all these years is also related to Infinite Boundless Mountain. Compared to the weak and useless Emperor of Shiling, Enchanting was definitely an extremely difficult person to control. Letting him ascend the throne was clearly not in line with Infinite Boundless Mountain's interests. Emo Xiuyao nodded his head in satisfaction. If that's the case, I believe that Enchanting is sincere about cooperating with us. A true expert would never be willing to submit to the control of others. As for Enchanting, there was no doubt that he was one of the top experts in the world. What are Prince's plans? Su Qingchen asked. Emo Xiuyao laughed coldly. Take drastic measures. Only by completely eliminating Infinite Boundless Mountain would they be able to prevent any future troubles. Even if Infinite Boundless Mountain did not take the initiative to look for the Prince Ding mansion this time, or even completely did not participate in this chaotic struggle for hegemony, when Emo Xiuyao was free he would also go find trouble with them. Just because they did not provoke the Prince Ding mansion now did not mean that they would not do so in the future. With such an organization that seemed to be independent of the world, yet also deeply rooted in every corner of the world as long as one was in power, they would definitely not like it. In the past it had nothing to do with the Prince Ding mansion. But that might not be the case in the future. Su Qingchen clearly felt that Emo Xiuyao's idea was not bad. After pondering for a moment she frowned slightly, saying, in so many years, no one has been able to find the true location of Infinite Boundless Mountain. I suspect that there is a massive natural formation in the vicinity of Infinite Boundless Mountain. I'm afraid that the Emperor Shiling's men will not be able to find it. Currently, Infinite Boundless Mountain was under the jurisdiction of Enchanting, and the Mahist army would not be able to easily enter and leave it. Formation. Those who had fought in wars would all have a certain level of understanding towards formations. But if Su Qingchen were to name it as such, then this formation would definitely exceed the capabilities of the average person. Otherwise, Enchanting would be able to deal with it himself, being a master of the art of war. Su Qingchen thought for a moment, then said, if it really comes to that, I would like to personally go and take a look. Emo Xiuyao did not object. Although young Master Qingchen had always been modest and did not have much understanding of the art of war, the so-called formations and the art of war were two completely different domains when one reached a high level. Since young Master Qingchen was so confident, Emo Xiuyao naturally believed in his abilities in the field of formations as well. As for Emo Xiuyao himself, he was actually more proficient in planning and strategy on the battlefield and rarely used formations. As for Yi Li, those single-word long snake formation, 3-flower formation, 9 palace 8 trigrams formation were not much different from heavenly scriptures to her. Su Qingyan followed them to listen and said with a smile, brother-in-law Prince Ding, big brother, you should first think about how to deal with the master of Infinite Boundless Mountain. I always feel that a woman who can call out a disciple like Dongfang Yu definitely has a bad temper. And that Dongfang Yu, I'm sure that she has taken a liking to big brother. Fifth young Master Su had improved a lot in these few years under Su Qingbai, especially after Su Qingbai went to the Western Tomb. It could be said that he had single-handedly supported the farming in the north and the resettlement of hundreds of thousands of refugees. It was as if he was going to be able to take charge of a region on his own. This made Emo Xiuyao very satisfied. The young masters of the Su family were the kind of people who would get more and more powerful the more pressure you gave them. Therefore he did not hesitate to use all his strength to squeeze them dry. Su Qingchen glanced at her brother indifferently. Su Qingyan suddenly felt a chill on the top of his head and lowered it pitifully. What he said was true. Big brother had been an immortal for a long time, and the people he usually interacted with were all scheming people or people close to him who respected him like a god. How could he understand the thoughts of a girl? Su Qingyan had spent a lot of time mingling with the ordinary people of the lower class. His understanding of the thoughts of ordinary girls was obviously much more thorough than that of an immortal like Su Qingchen. Big brother, don't blame me for not warning you if you don't listen to me and attract a bad girl. Su Qingyan thought gloatingly in his heart. The four of them were talking about Infinite Boundless Mountain when the guard outside reported that Prince Li had requested an audience. Su Qingyan could not help but be amused and said with a smile, "Isn't Emo Jingli trying to curry favor with Dongfang Yu? I reckon that kind of arrogant beauty is hard to please." Emo Jingli must have been met with a nose full of dust. For a girl like Dongfang Yu, if she took a liking to you, you could not reject her. If she did not like you, you could also not get close to her. If Emo Jingli wanted to curry favor with her, he would only be asking for trouble. Previously, when Dongfang Yu had just left the Prince Ding mansion, she had a chance encounter with Emo Jingli. Everyone in the Prince Ding mansion naturally knew about this, but they did not care. At this time, there were more than one person in Glass City who had the same thoughts as Emo Jingli. Guess what he came here for? Su Qingyan asked curiously. Could be said that everyone knew how much Emo Jingli hated Emo Shuyao. If there was no extremely important matter, he would definitely not set foot in the Prince Ding mansion. Emo Shuyao leaned against the back of the chair, stroking his chin and smiling lazily. I think he came to give a gift. Give a gift? Su Qingyan's eyes widened. Emo Jingli would give a gift to Prince Ding? It was possible that he would give him a few bottles of poison and stuff them into his mouth. The moment Emo Shuyao said this, even young Master Qingchen's expression changed slightly, his handsome eyes moving slightly. Are you sure he would give you something so important? Emo Shuyao smiled complacently. I said before that no treasure in this world can compare to a lack of successors. From the start, Emo Jingli had no choice but to agree to I. He just could not swallow his anger. Look, it has only been a few days and the thing has already arrived. It must have been I who mentioned it, and he immediately sent someone back to retrieve it. Chapter 799. Yi Li raised her eyebrows and said, giving away Dechu State's national treasure to someone else. Emo Jingli wouldn't be able to explain it to the court, right? What does this have to do with I? Emo Shuyao blinked and asked with a smile. The three people present were silent. It really didn't have anything to do with it. When Emo Jingli entered the room, his entire body was surrounded by a cold wind. Unfortunately, the four people present were not cowards. Instead, it scared the attendants holding the boxes behind him quite a bit. When they placed the boxes on the table, their hands were trembling. Dismissing the attendants, Emo Jingli stared at Emo Shuyao and said, I've brought the thing you wanted. Where is the thing I want? Emo Shuyao smiled indifferently and said, since King Li is straightforward, I will naturally keep my word. Brother Qingchen, take a look. Although the difference between a treasure and a fake was not big, the actual value was as different as heaven and earth. Su Qingchen nodded and stood up. She walked in front of a long brocade box and gently opened it. Inside was a snow-white jade zither. The body of the zither was as white as snow, and its luster was as gentle as jade. A blood-red phoenix was carved on the head of the zither. Since ancient times, the best zither material was paulownia wood. A zither made of jade was unheard of. Without mentioning anything else, such a large piece of top-quality white jade was extremely hard to find. Not to mention, jade was not as good as paulownia wood. To carve it into a zither was even more difficult. And this jade zither was not only beautiful in appearance, but the sound was also peerless. And in hundreds and thousands of years, there was only one zither made of white jade. It was known as an immortal zither tool. Su Qingchen's elegant and calm eyes flashed with a hint of joy. Her fingertips gently moved and ethereal sounds of the zither came from her fingertips. Even if it was just a few random notes, it was extremely pleasing to the ears. It really is the phoenix zither. Su Qingchen stopped and softly praised. Su Qingyan looked at the white jade zither in the brocade box in shock. For a moment he was so shocked by this shocking news that he couldn't recover. Phoenix zither. Phoenix zither. Was this the phoenix zither that had been passed down from generation to generation for several hundred years? As for the others, Su Qingyan unconsciously held his breath and stared blankly as Su Qingchen's slender fingers reached for another box. There was a white dress in the box. The snow-threaded dress didn't look very beautiful. It could even be said that it wasn't particularly eye-catching. The translucent white gauze was woven with a looming snow lotus pattern. Whether it was the phoenix brocade or the hibiscus brocade, which was once known as the best brocade in the world, the water cloud muslin had countless styles and colors that could compete with it. However, the value of the snow-threaded robe wasn't in its beauty, but its unbreakable defense. Su Qingchen looked up at Emo Xiaoyao and asked with a smile, "Prince, do you want to try it yourself?" "Of course I have to try." How could he dare to let Li Li use something that he hadn't tried before? Perhaps it wouldn't be a defensive treasure, but would instead become the culprit that injured Li Li. Emo Xiaoyao didn't stand on ceremony. He waited until Su Qingchen left before standing up. A silver light flashed at his waist and the white dress in the box was lifted up. After a few more slashes, the sword light disappeared into his waist, and the white gauze robe gently fell into his hand. Emo Xiaoyao nodded in satisfaction, as expected of the thousand snow-threaded robe that is said to be unbreakable. Not only can it block sharp swords, it can also block energy. Even with Emo Xiaoyao's profound skill, the thousand snow-threaded robe was not damaged in the slightest. From this, it could be seen that its defensive power was heaven-defying. Emo Xiaoyao. Emo Jingli's face was darker than the bottom of a pot. To use a sword so casually in front of him was too arrogant. Emo Xiaoyao said with a smile, "Since you've given it to its eyes. Can't I cut a few of them to try?" Emo Jingli gritted his teeth but didn't say anything. Emo Xiaoyao took the snow-threaded robe to Yi Li in satisfaction and said with a smile, "Li, do you like it? I'll get someone to modify it and make it into a beautiful new robe. Can Li try it?" Actually, among the treasures, the one he valued the most was this robe that was useless to normal people. As for the others, even though he refused to give it to Su Qingchen when she asked for the phoenix zither, it was just a joke. Yi Li also knew Emo Xiaoyao's intentions. She nodded with a smile and said, "Very good. It's not bad even if you don't modify it." Emo Xiaoyao's expression became even more joyful. He said with a smile, "As long as Li Li likes it." The remaining two treasures, the country-suppressing seal and the incineration sword, were also the real deal. Actually, Emo Jingli had interacted with Emo Xiaoyao countless times since he was young. He really didn't have the courage to use a fake to fool him. But in the end, the incineration sword was taken back by Su Qingchen for research because it had too much killing intent. It was taken away along with the phoenix zither. Emo Xiaoyao didn't care. With his current martial arts, there was no need for him to use any divine weapons. In the end, Prince Ding spent a lot of effort to extort Emo Jingli and only got the country-suppressing seal for himself. Emo Xiaoyao casually played with the country-suppressing seal that was about the same size as the imperial jade seal. He looked at it left and right but couldn't see the value of it. He then threw it to Su Qingyan, who was eyeing it covetously from the side. Su Qingyan cheered as he held the country-suppressing seal and looked at it fondly. Emo Jingli glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. The treasures in these bastards' hands were all his. Was it really okay to study it in front of him, the original owner? "Emo Xiaoyao, this is what I want," Emo Jingli said in a low voice. Emo Xiaoyao casually waved his hand and a small object flew towards Emo Jingli's face. Emo Jingli raised his hand to catch it and felt the web between his thumb and forefinger go numb. He was secretly shocked at Emo Xiaoyao's profound cultivation. At the same time, he gripped the porcelain bottle in his hand tightly. He opened it and sniffed it. After confirming that it was the same thing Yi Yu gave him, he secretly sighed in relief. Emo Xiaoyao looked at him from the corner of his eyes and said, "Don't worry, I can't be bothered to make fake medicine for you. Whether you have a house full of descendants or no descendants has nothing to do with I." Emo Jingli gritted his teeth, but he couldn't help but admit that Emo Xiaoyao was speaking the truth. Emo Xiaoyao looked at him and said slowly, "There's no reason for you to hate I so much. I wasn't the one who poisoned you, I wasn't the one who hid your son, and I didn't even steal the antidote. I just happened to have it, so what's wrong with me casually taking it? Or do you expect I to help the world without expecting anything in return?" Emo Jingli stared at him and said coldly, "I will remember what happened this time." "As you wish," Emo Xiaoyao said with a smile. In any case, Emo Jingli would hate him regardless of what happened this time. Then why should he be constrained by this? Naturally, he would take as many things as he could get. It would be a waste to leave them in Emo Jingli's hands anyway. Su Qingyan raised his head and looked pitifully at Emo Jingli as he played with the country-suppressing seal. He really wanted to tell him, "Prince Li, you should leave quickly. Otherwise you'd lose so many treasures and still be angry to the point of vomiting blood." He didn't need to say anything. Emo Jingli had been trampled on by a certain person for many years. He glared fiercely at Emo Xiaoyao, then left in a huff. Chapter 800. This morning, the Prince Ding mansion and the Su family brought the two one-month-old babies to Master Qingyun's courtyard to chat and laugh. After the birthday celebration, Mo Shuyao also came back from the border. Master Qingyun couldn't stand the noise in Li City and was worried about the students of Li Shan Academy, so he prepared to leave the city and return to Li Shan Academy. Everyone couldn't stop him and could only come over to eat breakfast with Master Qingyun before sending him out of the city. Mr. Qingyun was also very fond of the two newborn babies. Looking at little Lin who was sleeping soundly in his arms, Master Qingyun asked, "Did you choose the names of the two children?" Yili smiled. "Aren't they waiting for grandfather to give them good names?" Master Qingyun shook his head. "How can there be parents like you? The names of the three children were all given by other people. You're lazy." Yili smiled. "How can grandfather be considered as other people? It's their good fortune to have grandfather give them names." Even in the Su family, only the two uncles and eldest brothers' names were given by grandfather. Mo Xiaobao lay beside Master Qingyun's legs and nodded. "Mother is right. The names grandfather gave are good." Although Mo Xiaobao was given a nickname that wasn't very beautiful by his father, it was fortunate that his name was still able to support the situation. Mo Yuchen, no matter how you look at it, was more impressive than his father's name. So the name grandfather gave him must be praised. Mo Shuyao felt a bit wronged. Although he knew that Master Qingyun gave a name that many people begged for, but could it be that the names he gave weren't good? Alright, he was a bit slow in naming his daughter. As for his son, why would a boy need such a good name? Having the ability was the most important. Glancing at Mo Xuyao's wronged appearance, Yili was expressionless. Thinking of the pile of papers in the study about her daughter's name, her head hurt. Mo Shuyao really didn't have the talent for naming. Master Qingyun lowered his head and thought, "Since Yuchen has the word Yu, then how about Lin name Feng?" Su Hongyu nodded and smiled. "Yu Feng?" Father had chosen a good name. "Prince Li what do you think?" Mo Shuyao didn't have any objections to his son's name. Yili also nodded with a smile and said, "Naturally, the name given by grandfather is a good name. Don't look at how simple the word Feng was, as if it wasn't as domineering and noble as Yuchen. Grandpa must have hoped that little Lin would grow up to have a carefree personality. After all, no matter what happened to the Prince Ding mansion in the future, if there were no accidents, the one to inherit the Prince Ding mansion should be Mo Xiaobao. Grandpa naturally didn't want the tragedy of brothers fighting against each other to happen to them. In that case, little Lin name shall be Yu Feng. What should our little princess be called?" Qin Jing asked with a smile. Mr. Qingyun lowered his head and thought for a moment. He said, "How about Yu Yao?" "Yeah. Both Yu Qin and Yu Feng follow the word Yu?" Su Qingchen asked. Mr. Qin shook his head and said, "No, the word Yu is too strong and domineering for a girl. It's not beautiful." Mo Shuyao carefully savored it and also felt that he couldn't find anything bad about it. Before his daughter was born, he had secretly thought of countless names. It wasn't necessarily that there weren't better names. However, he looked at this and that and couldn't choose one no matter how hard he tried. The name that Mr. Qingyun came up with was both pleasant to hear and artistic. It also didn't disgrace his cute little princess. Nodding his head, Mo Shuyao pinched the little princess' sleeping face in Yili's hands and said with a smile, "Okay, in the future I's little princess will be called Yu Yao." The names that other people couldn't decide on for a long time, Mr. Qingyun came up with them in a short while. Yili also let out a sigh of relief. Even if she came up with a name, she might not be able to come up with a better name than Grandpa. As for Mo Shuyao, his daughter's name was fine, but his son's name couldn't be counted on. Now that it was solved in one go, the two babies both got good names. Naturally, it couldn't be better. "I've been very busy this month. I didn't even manage to hold the two children's one-month-old banquet. Next year when they turn one, we can't be so aggrieved." Looking at his two little great-grandsons, Mr. Qingyun said with some regret. At this age, he didn't care that much about formalities. However, because of his own birthday, he had neglected the two children's one-month-old banquet. This made Mr. Qingyun feel some regret. He would rather not hold a birthday banquet than let the two children suffer. Yili lightly patted little Exener's swaddling clothes and said with a smile, "Grandpa, don't worry. When they turn one next year, I'm still waiting for Grandpa to personally give them a birthday gift. Moreover, there are too many people coming this time. These two have just been born. It's not a big deal to hold such a big banquet. They can't withstand the torment. That's why we all slacked off. There was a saying among the people that children with a light fate couldn't bear too much good fortune. However, the little heir and princess of the Prince Ding mansion naturally didn't have this kind of misgivings. Yili said this to comfort Mr. Qingyun. Secondly, it was true. If there was another 1-month-old banquet, there was no doubt that the newly born twins would be pushed to the teeth of the storm. In this case, it was better to save it. Speaking of this, Mr. Qingyun also thought of something and asked, I heard that the successor of the Boundless Mountain has appeared. Although everyone was determined to hide the annoying things outside from Mr. Qingyun, it was impossible to not disclose any information. After a few days, it was not strange for Mr. Qingyun to hear some words. At the mention of this, eldest Madame Su's face was full of anger. She said, Father, you don't know. That Miss Dongfang is really a little. Our Su family can't let such a woman into our family. The last time they met, eldest Madame Su was really angry. She went to see Dongfang Yu with full of hope and joy. However, the result was like a bucket of ice water poured on her head. Her heart was cold and she felt depressed. After marrying into the Su family for decades, Mrs. Su was famous for her good temper. But even so, she was so angry that she called Su Qingchen over and scolded him fiercely. Of course, the most wronged person was Mr. Qingchen, who suffered from the undeserved disaster from the beginning to the end. Mr. Qingyun raised his eyebrows with interest. Miss Dongfang wants to marry into the Su family? Su Qingyan immediately volunteered to tell Mr. Qingyun all kinds of stories of Miss Dongfang chasing Mr. Qingchen. Fifth young Master Su's eloquence was like a lotus flower. He described Miss Dongfang's infatuation with Mr. Qingchen vividly. He completely forgot to see his eldest brother's cold smile. Fifth young Master Su's words were interesting. Mr. Qingyun was also interested. In the end, he commented, This little girl is somewhat interesting. Qingchen, what do you say? Grandfather. Su Qingchen called helplessly. I have no intention of getting married. Mr. Qingyun stroked his snow-white beard and smiled. You are not young anymore. You should think about it. However, forget about the girl of the Boundless Mountain. Grandfather, have you seen the people of the Green Cloud Mountain? Su Qingyan asked curiously. Last time when the successor of the Boundless Mountain came down the mountain, Mr. Qingyun was still young. However, Mr. Qingyun became famous very early. At that time he was already famous all over the world. It was very likely that he had seen the successor of the Boundless Mountain. Mr. Qingyun shook his head with a smile. The person who came down from the Boundless Mountain this time was the mistress of the Genom of Gojoseon, the former emperor of Xiling, the Empress Dowager. However, I have seen several other people of the Boundless Mountain. Chapter 801. Are there other people from Infinite Boundless Mountain moving about at the foot of the mountain? Su Qingyan asked curiously. Su Qingchen said, Since Infinite Boundless Mountain has such a large power, it is impossible that no one has been paying attention to it for decades. Naturally, there are people in charge of it in secret. It is just that it is much more secretive than the previous generations. Mr. Qingyun nodded. That's right. These people have no fame in the world at all and do not attract any attention at all. Some even die of old age without doing anything in their entire lives, no different from ordinary citizens. However, there are many capable people among them who are willing to remain silent. From this, it can be seen that Infinite Boundless Mountain's methods of controlling their subordinates are definitely exceptional. But that Dongfang Yu, fifth young Master Su, was a little doubtful. That Dongfang Yu might be more knowledgeable than him, but if it was a battle of wits, he really could not see anything special about her. Mr. Qingyun shook his head. This Miss Dongfang indeed does not seem like a descendant of Infinite Boundless Mountain. However, the more she is like this, the more powerful the person Infinite Boundless Mountain will send to help her in secret. Mo Shuyao smiled. Isn't that powerful? The Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain Dongfang Hui has already personally come to Glass City. I reckon it won't be long before they come asking for an audience. Dongfang Hui. Su Hongyu frowned slightly, asking. Yili nodded. That's right. Has first uncle heard of this name before? Su Hongyu was silent for a moment before saying mildly, I do know someone called Dongfang Hui. Yili could not help but look at Mo Shuyao beside her. Coincidentally, Mo Shuyao also looked over. The two were silent. From first uncle's tone, It did not seem like they had an ordinary relationship. If it was really as they thought, then it would really be a huge mess of melodrama. If the two of them could tell, the others would naturally be able to as well. However, no one asked in detail. Lady Su, Qin Zheng and the others had always only cared about the matters of the inner residence and would not ask about it. After breakfast, Su Qingfeng and Su Qingze sent Mr. Qingyun out of the city, before everyone returned to the study to continue their conversation. Originally, Su Qingyan also wanted to send Master Qingyun out of the city, but for some reason he changed his mind and said that he had something to do and would leave the city tomorrow to accompany his grandfather. Then he shamelessly followed Master Qingyun into the study. "Father, what's your relationship with Dongfang Hui?" Fifth young Master Su was the first to lose his cool. The other three people secretly heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. If Su Qingyan hadn't asked on their behalf, even young Master Qingchen wouldn't have had the nerve to ask his father such a private question. Su Hongyu was stunned. He glared at Su Qingyan and scolded him with a smile. "What nonsense are you thinking? We only knew each other when we were young." Looking at the expressions of the other three, it was clear that they had the same idea as Su Qingyan. Mr. Hongyu was so angry that he slapped Su Qingyan's head in annoyance. It wasn't that they were narcissistic and thought that every woman would have feelings for Su Hongyu. Though Master Hongyu was already in his prime, he was still lean and handsome. Just by looking at the appearances of Su Qingchen and his brothers, one could imagine how handsome Master Hongyu had been when he was young. Though the marriage of the Su family brothers had almost become a problem these past few years, it definitely wasn't because they weren't well off. On the contrary, it was because they were just too outstanding. There were very few ladies who could match up to them. Su Qingyan didn't mind being scolded by his father. Compared to such a small scolding, he was more worried that his father's confidant would suddenly appear, or even a concubine. Not to mention what his mother would think or what his brothers would think, his grandfather would break his father's legs first. "So you're saying that the time of infinite boundless mountain's entry into the world is actually rather random?" Su Qingchen raised his brows and asked. Su Hongyu said mildly, "They say that they enter the world once every 60 years, but how could it be so strict? If it's not their turn, then wouldn't those who enter after 60 years be stuck in the mountain forever? No matter how intelligent a frog in a well is, it's useless. It's just that they don't do it so openly. I met Dongfang Hui 27 or 28 years ago. At that time she was only 16 or 17 years old, having just come down from the mountain to temper herself." "What does eldest uncle think of this Dongfang Hui?" Yili asked. Su Hongyu thought for a moment, then said, "That was because she was still young and was still rather innocent. However, her methods, impatience and decisiveness were all not bad. At the very least, it's definitely not something that girl called Dongfang you can compare to. After so many years, I can't say for sure what exactly has happened. However, we must not underestimate her." Su Qingchen nodded. "Many thanks for father's reminder. Your son knows." Indeed, just after noon, Chief Steward Mo came to report that the Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain had come to visit, and that he had specially said that he had come to visit the first young master of the Su family, Su Qingchen. From this faint special explanation, it could be seen that the people of Infinite Boundless Mountain were a little displeased with first young Master Su. Su Qingchen, who had originally intended to push the matter to Mo Xiuyao, also followed along to the front hall to meet the guest. Mo Xiuyao held Yi Li's hand as they walked into the hall, side by side, and saw a middle-aged woman standing in the middle of the hall with her hands clasped behind her back, admiring a painting. She didn't sit down, and Dongfang Yu beside her naturally didn't dare to sit down either. There were also quite a few young men and women standing by the side. Before Mo Xiuyao had even entered, he could already feel that although these people looked young, they were all experts that were hard to come by. In comparison, in terms of martial arts, Dongfang Hui was actually the weakest. However, even so, these young men and women still stood by the side with their heads bowed respectfully. Even when Mo Xiuyao and the others entered, they didn't raise their heads to look at them or say a word. Evidently, they were extremely respectful, even reverent towards Dongfang Hui. Hearing the sound of footsteps, Dongfang Hui turned to look at the door, smiling mildly. "Prince Ding, Princess Ding. Nice to meet you." Yili smiled mildly, nodding. "Lady Fong of Infinite Boundless Mountain, nice to meet you. Lady, please sit down. Is there anything wrong with the Prince Ding mansion?" Dongfang Hui said with a smile. "Princess, you're too serious. Please forgive me for intruding." Mo Shuyao held Yi Li's hand and sat down on the main seat. Dong Fenghui then sat down on the first seat on the right. Su Qingchen strolled over and sat down opposite her. Dong Fenghui looked at Su Qingchen sitting opposite her, and a faint fluctuation flashed through her eyes. She raised her head and smiled at Yi Li. Yuer is young and ignorant, so she acts recklessly. These days she has caused a lot of trouble for the Prince Ding mansion. Prince and Princess, please forgive her. Yi Li smiled and glanced at Dong Fengyu, who was standing behind Dong Fenghui, and said with a smile, Lady Feng, you're too serious. Miss Dongfeng is a guest. It's our Prince Ding mansion that has neglected Miss Dongfeng. Please don't blame us. Dong Fenghui frowned slightly, looking at Yi Li with a bit more admiration. Looking at the well-behaved Dong Fengyu beside her, she couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If Yuer had Princess Ding's exquisite heart silk, how could things end like this? Looking sideways at Su Qingchen for a while, Dong Fenghui asked, Is this the eldest son of the Su family, young Master Qingchen? Chapter 802. Su Qingchen nodded, cupped his hands and smiled, That's me. Greetings, Madame Dongfeng. Dong Fenghui nodded and sighed, Young Master Qingchen is so elegant. He really deserves the title of the #1 young master in the world. Mr. Hongyu should be happy to have such a son. Madam, you flatter me. Su Qingchen was still smiling, but looking at Dong Fenghui he was even more satisfied. At the beginning, Dong Fenghui only wanted to protect the face of the infinite boundless mountain and clean up the mess for Dong Fengyu. Now she really felt that it would be good if Su Qingchen could become the son-in-law of the infinite boundless mountain. She had no children. She had raised Dong Fengyu from a young age. She had probably spent more effort than many biological parents. Naturally, she also hoped that her disciple could have a good marriage. However, Dong Fengyu didn't understand the ways of the world. No matter who she married, her life would be difficult. Even if she had the infinite boundless mountain behind her, she couldn't guarantee that her husband would love her sincerely. If she was married and raised up, her life wouldn't be better than being a widow. But the Su family was different. As long as Dong Fengyu married into the Su family wouldn't mistreat her. Unfortunately, Dong Fenghui didn't know that Dong Fengyu had already offended the first madam of the Su family, young Master Qingchen's mother. Looking at this situation, Yi Li sighed softly in her heart. Why was Dong Fenghui looking at her elder brother like a son-in-law? The hall was silent for a moment. Yi Li asked, Madam, what brings you here? Dong Fenghui smiled faintly, I haven't gone down the mountain for decades. This time my disappointing disciple ran down the mountain. I had to go down the mountain to find her and look around. Yuer has been spoiled by me since young. If she offended you, please forgive her. Yi Li smiled faintly, Of course not. Miss Dongfeng is talented and beautiful. Madam, you are so lucky. Looking at Yi Li's behavior, Dong Fenghui knew that it wouldn't be easy to make the Su family agree to marry Dong Fengyu. After pondering for a moment, Dong Fenghui sighed softly and said, Princess Consort Yuer is to blame for this matter. Over these years, infinite boundless mountain's population has dwindled. Originally, I had not intended to let Yuer descend the mountain. While infinite boundless mountain was a little cold and desolate, it was still much better than being swept into these chaotic times. Who would have thought that the child would run down the mountain without us noticing? But now that things had come to this, Yuer was a girl after all. I don't ask for her to bring glory to infinite boundless mountain. I only hope that she can marry peacefully. Henceforth I'll be a good wife to my husband and raise my children, living a peaceful life. It had to be said that as a master, as the person in charge of infinite boundless mountain, Dong Fenghui's efforts towards this disciple of hers were extremely moving. But the problem was that the Su family and Su Qingchen had to bear the consequences of helping her. Whether it was for the Su family, for her brother, or for the layout of the Prince Ding mansion, Yi Li could only bite her lip. Looking at Dong Fengyu, Yi Li smiled. It is also Miss Dongfeng's fortune to have such a good master as Madame. Miss Dongfeng is as beautiful as a flower, skilled in both the pen and the sword. She is also from a prestigious family. If Madame wishes to take in a son-in-law, how could the heroes of the world not hear the news and come? Dong Fenghui's smile faded slightly as she looked at Yi Li, asking, Then, what about the first young master of the Su family? Yi Li paused for a moment before replying calmly, Elder brother's marriage is naturally decided by grandfather, first uncle and first aunt. While this junior is Princess Ding, I am still a junior. How could I dare to act on my own accord? Dongfang Hui understood that Yi Li's words at least expressed her attitude. The Prince Ding mansion would definitely not make use of Su Qingchen's marriage for the sake of infinite boundless mountain's power. In fact, there was already a hidden message within. The Prince Ding mansion was unwilling to have a marriage alliance with infinite boundless mountain. As such, Dongfang Hui's opinion of Emo Xiuyao rose a little. After all, in this world, Emo Xiuyao was probably the only one who could resist such a temptation and push away such a powerful ally. Dongfang Hui frowned, saying, Princess Ding means that this matter needs to be discussed with Mr. Hongyu and Madam personally? Yi Li smiled. The marriage of a child naturally needs to be discussed with their parents. It was not that Yi Li wanted to push the trouble to Su Hongyu and Madam Su, but that she indeed did not have the right to reject on behalf of Su Qingchen. Even if she rejected on behalf of Su Qingchen, Dongfang Hui would still bring up Su Hongyu and Madam Su. After all, even if one traveled the world, there was no way that a cousin could make the decision for her cousin's marriage. Dongfang Hui looked a little helpless as she asked Su Qingchen, what does young Master Qingchen say? While Yu was in the wrong in this matter, she is still a girl at the end of the day. I am also a girl and naturally know that it is not easy to be a girl. Su Qingchen raised his eyebrows. Dongfang Hui's matter reminded him that after these days, Dongfang Yu's reputation had already been ruined. If he did not marry Dongfang Yu, it would be irresponsible. Su Qingchen glanced sideways at Emo Xiuyao, who was sitting leisurely beside him, and said lightly, Madam, you are exaggerating. Originally, Miss Dongfang said that she was going to marry into the Prince Ding mansion. This was heard by all the dignitaries present at that time. Madam, you also know that the rules of the Su family are that we do not ask for a girl to be beautiful and talented. We only ask for a clean, gentle, and virtuous reputation. Moreover, with Miss Dongfang's character and talent, there is no need to worry that there won't be any heroes in the world fighting to marry her. Su Qingchen's words were very gentle and polite, but in Dongfang Hui's ears they were very harsh. What Su Qingchen meant was that since Dongfang Yu was born in the Boundless Mountain, she did not need to care about her reputation at all. Not to mention that she only had a rumor with someone. Even if something really happened, there was no need to worry about no one wanting to marry her. But the Su family was an exception. The daughter-in-law of the Su family did not need to have any ability or background. She only needed a clean reputation and a virtuous character. But Dongfang Yu did not have either of these. No matter how good Dongfang Hui's temper was, she was still angered by Emo Xiuyao's words to the point that her heart secretly ached. At the same time, she also discovered that this seemingly gentle and refined immortal young master did not have a good impression of the Boundless Mountain, even vaguely showing some hostility. Compared to Prince Ding's indifference and Princess Ding's tactful rejection, this young Master Qingchen was the one who truly hated the Boundless Mountain. Dongfang Hui was a little unsure whether Su Qingchen's attitude towards the Boundless Mountain was because of Dongfang Yu's incessant pestering these past few days. But logically speaking, with the personalities of the Su family, even if they were dissatisfied with Dongfang Yu's pestering, they would not express such direct hatred and hostility. Frowning, Dongfang Hui secretly felt that she might have been a little too anxious. Chapter 803. Although she knew that what she proposed was wrong, Dongfang Hui could not give up just like that. Not only was she unable to swallow her anger because of Su Qingchen's merciless provocation, but her identity also did not allow her to walk out of the room like this. Glass City was still filled with people, and even the Prince Ding mansion did not dare to say that there were no spies in the mansion. The moment they stepped out of the Prince Ding mansion, the news that the Lord of Infinite Boundless Mountain had personally proposed marriage to young Master Qingchen on behalf of his disciple and was still rejected would spread throughout Glass City. It was not that Dongfang Hui did not want to leave, but that she was also in a difficult position. After a moment of silence, Dongfang Hui quickly collected her thoughts and raised her head to ask, since that is the case, I wonder if I can meet Mr. Hongyu and Madam personally? Speaking of which, I have not seen Mr. Hongyu for over 20 years. Just as Yi Li was about to refuse, she saw Su Qingchen nodding at her discreetly. Although she did not understand Su Qingchen's thoughts, Yi Li did not ask further. She summoned Zhuojing and asked him where Su Hongyu and Madam Su were. Zhuojing replied, Mr. Hongyu is in the study. Madame Su and Madame Su are in the guest courtyard talking with Madame Yang. Yili nodded and said, "Go and invite uncle and aunt over." Zhuojing accepted the order and left. The hall fell silent for a moment. Dongfang Hui had something on her mind and had just been slapped in the face by Su Qingchen, so she was not in the mood to speak. As the host, Mo Shuyao directly lay on Yi Li's lap and closed his eyes to rest. His silver hair was casually spread out on Yi Li's lap, not caring that there were guests present. Su Qingchen and Yi Li were also people who could keep their composure. They each sat and sipped their tea, their expressions calm and composed. On the other hand, although Dongfang Yu was mentally prepared for Su Qingchen's rejection, when she heard Su Qingchen's rejection again, she could not help but feel more disappointed and pained in her heart. She looked at Su Qingchen with more bitterness in her eyes. Initially, when she said that she wanted to marry Su Qingchen, it was indeed an expedient plan. Even Dongfang Yu herself did not feel that it was a must. She just felt that Su Qingchen was the best choice. However, after young Master Qingchen's repeated rejections, Dongfang Yu took it to heart. If it was said that Dongfang Yu had chosen to marry Su Qingchen first because young Master Qingchen was Ding Wangfei's cousin and the #1 strategist in Ding Wangfu, then because of young Master Qingchen himself. Her persistence had nothing to do with Su Qingchen's identity. Yi Li sighed inwardly when she saw Dongfang Yu's expression. Unfortunately, Su Qingyan's prediction was right. In fact, Dongfang Yu had been careless in this matter. In the beginning, she probably did not think that she would have any feelings for Su Qingchen. That was why she could speak so openly. Just as she said, it was just a mutually beneficial cooperation. But since young Master Qingchen was known as the immortal young master, it was too easy for women to fall in love with him. If Dongfang Yu had such a relationship tribulation, it was entirely her own fault. Not long after, Su Hongyu arrived with Madame Su. Behind them was naturally Su Qingyan, who wished for the world to be in chaos. Seeing Su Hongyan, Dongfang Hui also stood up and smiled. "Brother Su, I haven't seen you for many years. You are still as elegant as ever." It had to be said that Dongfang Hui was a very attractive woman, even if she was not young anymore. Perhaps it was because of her identity as the owner of the boundless mountain that she had the confidence and agility of a woman in the world. But she did not make people feel that she was domineering or annoying. Only Madame Sun of the Emperor of Xiling City, Sun Huinyang, had such a feeling. But she was more elegant and restrained than Sun Huinyang. Sun Huinyang only made people feel that she was agile and domineering, but she made people feel reverence and admiration from the bottom of their hearts. Su Hongyu nodded and smiled faintly. "Madame Dongfang." Yi Li stood up and said softly, "Li and the prince are not handling things well. Sorry to trouble first uncle and aunt." Madame Su took her hand and said with a smile, "What are you talking about? It's about Qingchen's marriage. How can it be troublesome? If I can let your big brother marry a good wife, I'm willing to be busy every day." "Mother." Su Qingchen did not know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that his mother really hated him for not getting married. She did not forget to make fun of him at all times. Madame Su glanced at him and said unhappily, "Do you still have something to say? If you had not been unwilling to get married, how could there be today's matter?" Young Master Qingchen touched his nose and silently admitted it. Dongfang Hui and Dongfang Yu's expressions changed. Although Madame Su did not speak to them, her words were obviously scolding Su Qingchen. In the ears of others, it was more like she was saying that Dongfang Yu was shameless and wanted to stick to Su Qingchen. Dongfang Hui's expression froze slightly, but she recovered quickly. If Yi Li had not been paying attention to her, she would not have noticed it. Dongfang Hui stroked her hair and said with a faint smile, "Big brother Su, it's rare for sister-in-law to be so straightforward." Only then did Mrs. Su turn around to look at her. Then she turned to Su Hongyu and asked, "Master, is there a girl in our family? Do you think I can't tell that you're mocking me for not looking like a girl from a noble family?" Su Hongyu said with a faint smile, "Madam, don't be silly. You have been married to the Su family for more than 30 years. Don't you know who is in our family? This is Madame Dongfang of the Boundless Mountain. We met several times in the early years when Madame Dongfang went out to practice." "I see." Madame Su nodded and said apologetically, "Madame Dongfang, I'm sorry. Please don't take offense." Dongfang Hui only felt a pain in her stomach. She had not left the mountain for 20 years, but she had experienced a lot in these years. She had never felt that she was so annoying. Or the people at the foot of the mountain had changed too quickly in the past 20 years. If Su Qingchen was trying to hide her hostility, then Madame Su was clearly hostile to her. Looking at Su Hongyu, who was standing beside Madame Su, Dong Fenghui suddenly realized something. But she also felt that she was wronged. Although she did have some thoughts about Su Hongyu when she was young. But when she knew that Su Hongyu was married and she was going to take over the Boundless Mountain, she gave up this thought. If Madame Su was hostile to her because of this, she would be too narrow-minded. After the host and guest were seated, Madame Su looked at Dong Fenghui calmly and said with a faint smile, "Just now Lier sent someone to say that Madame Dongfeng wants to talk to us about Qingchen's marriage. What does Madame have to say?" Dong Fenghui felt a little embarrassed, but she still calmly said what she wanted to say. She expressed very euphemistically that the Boundless Mountain was willing to marry the Su family. Madame Su looked at Dong Fenghui lightly and said, "Do you know the process of marriage in ordinary families?" Dong Fenghui was stunned. Before she could answer, she heard Madame Su continue, "Nai Wenming Naji Nijing betrothal and bride escort." Even in the royal family, the name of the girl who was granted marriage by the royal family is only known by those who are very close to her. Miss Dongfeng has been famous all over the world before she is married. If she really gets married, asking for her name can be saved. That's not a big deal. A talented and beautiful girl should be more tolerant. In the past, the names of the noble ladies in the Chu capital were also spread, but they were not as famous as Miss Dongfeng. However, the future daughter-in-law of the Su family doesn't need to be beautiful or famous. There is only one rule. She must abide by the rules and abide by the rules. You're tuning in to the Biao's Wuxiao Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.